And with the expansion of FMLS with Macon and Alabama and Colorado now,
sorts of different kinds.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I think.
Oh, because I think she knew this.
A couple of the drawstrings had a little
Okay.
trouble with, but I got a pack of like 400 and something, and only 2 pieces, right?
Like we hear your names, I think you're just down the street by the other market centers.
But,
Oh,
Trick or treat.
oh, really?
Oh, sure.
oh, sorry, that straw's falling out a little bit.
Faded a little bit. I just turned it over. Started doing some other stuff.
How are you?
You should probably talk to people like, how do you grow your business and sell your database here? 'Cause you're probably.
Hey, good morning.
Kinda,
Thank you.
How are you, Susan?
assistant.
How's everything?
I'm trying to
Try.
I would anyway.
you know, I mean,
Yeah, I
you know, help if they want to help.
Anyways, but
Yes.
here's.
But I just thought that
Really.
I was like,
help
this is
this,
so
like,
amazing.
you want to talk to somebody hiring like this?
No, it's last couple of years, start working
So,
on the database.
we'll see.
Let's see, yeah, how do you see, what is it? For
He works at a sign company, he's an installer.
Okay.
And he told me that there's a clear up to 430. But I
mean, the project is, I don't know, sometimes in construction or something, they could be out of town or out in the field.
well, I wonder if possibly his wife had done all of the negotiations possibly, because there were a lot of things he couldn't tell me. But, and I didn't ask the question yet, who actually applied, things like that, so I'll call him after this. And I'll let you know. You know, I
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah.
They could possibly remember.
This is great.
Say hey, Coach.
Hey.
No, my sister's kidding.
What's your weekend?
It's good. Trunk or treat, the trunk or treat.
I didn't do that.
So how are you doing?
In soccer. Good.
Maybe I should just sit up here in the front.
Fine.
So, you all have some TV, like regular TV.
She said she's a because you told me your son.
Hello, how are you?
How's it going? Susan Craven. We've met with Cindy, this is Brandon.
What was I It was tough. Usually somebody's like, you guys are like a little bit of a niche of it. I'm okay.
And learning the hard way? Sure.
It's hard to read those out.
Yeah, we're right there. We're holding on. Right on the the biggest data center right by our. So we will have to sit. Because now they're bringing out townhomes. It's no longer like now as our church is not sold. Well, selling like car. I'm doing everybody gets everybody.
I love that one. It's one of my favorites.
It's not gonna be. It's not gonna be long.
Oh, I was like, what? What did our first year?
So I don't know where I'm going to find that.
I don't think you
You can even worry about that. Where are you going to find
first I think we have.
No, you didn't tell me anything. Thank you so much.
That might help.
Yeah, it was awesome. We held a huge
There's your booth. There's the booth. Good morning, good morning.
Yes. So we went for like the caucus and like soccer, but like everybody wanted to watch it. Yeah. So it was pretty cool. So we stayed like huge and like other friends over at the finally, people started sitting on chairs, so I was like, all right. So I stood up and started watching. And I also thought it was like, oh my god. You would have your summer spot. Yeah, it was.
All right, well, let's get started.
I don't think I got it. Yes. 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 I ate it, but I don't think we have
All right, good morning, everybody. Let's go get started. Someone quickly give me some good news.
Really?
Someone give me some good news.
I have 2 new clients.
Tell me about it.
Well, I got everybody under contract, you know, with the market is just giving, then I had nobody. So now I have 2 new clients. One's gonna be a buy-sell and another one's moving here and it's gonna be a buy. So
Love
yay!
it. How did you get them?
From open houses.
Open houses do work.
Yeah, and this is my friend Lynn. I met her at an
Let's
open house.
welcome Lynn.
I met her before COVID at an open house and we became friends and now I'm trying to get her to come here. And she got her license. Yeah, so there we go.
So how did you go this weekend? I heard good. Thank you for everybody that helped participate on Saturday.
Oh, the burgers and the wieners were excellent.
Excellent day.
Excelente, delicioso, right, Aldrin?
Yes, very
The
good.
vegan burger was awesome.
Yeah, his skill set on a grill is something to watch.
I should take it. Yes, and Liz.
We had a nice steady crowd, so it wasn't packed at any point, right? But we had a flow, so that was good.
I like Plymouth City crowd. I like that. Thank you all for doing that. Let's give them a hand, guys. They worked hard on that. I say them, because I always leave somebody out when I say thank you, Liz, or thank you, Christy. So whoever the man is, I'm glad you came. I know Rob was here also, and he came because I was out of town, so that's been great. Yeah, so cool. So I went to my grandson's track meet on Saturday morning, and I'll just tell you, there was 150 people running, and they finished in the top 100. That's all I'll tell you. Guys, they're short, they're cute, but they're short. Got you right there, guys had a good time. So anyway, anybody else have some good news we need to talk about?
Yeah, today's the National I Care About You.
Say that in English.
I care about you.
There was a
So good to me.
So
all the time. I'm so
I wasn't listening.
National I Care About You Day. You see,
I care about you.
I care about you.
How do you say that in Spanish?
El día de que
Me
te
importas.
de que me importas o te cuido. Porque me importas.
No, me importas. Me importas.
See, I knew you didn't know how to speak Spanish.
I was ready for Orlando.
Actually, he had to have an interpreter over here. All right, you all, let's
I can learn English and I forget my Spanish.
That's good. Okay, guys, let us move on. Partners. My favorite closing attorney partner right here.
Sweet, your check is in the mail.
It actually is.
It actually is, no,
I
I'm just
like
kidding.
others.
Good morning, guys. I'm Carrie with Thomas & Brown, and we have 2 fun classes coming up, CE-wise, on the 3rd of November, which is not that long, right? It's literally next week. It's crazy.
That's ridiculous.
It was ridiculous. It was just January, and here we are.
I know.
But November 3rd, we have, thank you, Vanna, we have disclosures, inspections, repairs, oh my. So we're gonna meet in here from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock and talk about all of the beauty that comes along with that. We're gonna talk about the exhibits and special steps relating to the condition of the property and all that good stuff. So that is one of them. And then this is not until December, but it's very important, so I wanna get it on your calendars, December the 8th. We're gonna do our contract changes for 2023. So that'll be from 1:30 to 4:30 in this room. So we're just gonna talk about, obviously, the DAR contract changes, the reasons for the change. And if y'all have not had a class with Cheryl yet, she is awesome, and she's actually on the forms committee. So she helps write a lot of these changes, and she has a lot of good insight for those. So we look forward to seeing y'all there. And for the Atlanta board members, if you're going to the chili cook-off on Thursday, we are gonna have a tent in chili, and it's gonna be so much fun, so be sure to come by. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's give her a hand, you all. Next,
That would be me. I
come
do
on up.
believe. Good morning, everybody. Whoa, look at that guy. Well, I hadn't even thought about the fact that I won the chili thing. Sorry, I just had this in my pocket. It was crazy. But I want to tell you guys, I think there was some home cooking. Get it? Because honestly, Rusty, I know this sounds, his was crazy. Did y'all see on Facebook what he did with that massive Wagyu, is that where you pronounce it, meatball? Anyway, it was great. So yeah, chili cook-off, bring your A game next year, we're gonna do it again. Danielle, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Just wanted to give you some market updates. Interest rates this week are coming in at about 7.5, 7.6, somewhere in there. There is a Fed meeting November 1st and 2nd. It's coming up. They anticipate they're gonna increase rates by 75 basis points. Not sure how that's gonna affect mortgage rates, but just wanted to kind of let everyone know that the Fed is still aggressively trying to fight inflation. And also, we've seen some other lenders out there that are promoting refinance programs. We offer the same, we have for several years. So if you have a client that's purchasing that wants to consider refinancing when rates go down, we do have special pricing for them.
We have a great name, it's called our Past Client Refi Special. Isn't that cool? Really great, worked long and hard on that, but I mean, like in 2020, I did 135 past clients, we did their refis, and they have reduced fees. So anyway, yeah, somebody was asking something. No? Martin, did you have
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah.
So what number of chili were you? Because I
Four. I was number 4.
Oh,
Yeah, I know, what was the was it? What did you good? No.
Very disappointed.
I didn't like number 4.
I was between 1 and 7.
Well, 3 was good, but anyway, and so guys, one thing I want to mention, and I know we've got stats coming up today, but I saw this yesterday. So new housing completions that were up last month in August, to 1.427 million units a year. Now the interesting thing is that new household formations are trending between 1.6 and 1.7 million houses a year. So here's what that means. Our inventory issue is not going away. There would have to be something cataclysmic that killed demand completely. Because you've got people, like we're still getting phone calls today. We've got people calling now that we didn't have 6 weeks ago. And when we tell them what the rates are, they go, oh shoot, okay, well, how much can we qualify for? And they're moving forward. Rather than 2 months ago, they went, oh gosh, I'm not buying a house now. People are getting over the sticker shock. They're realizing that right now that's what it costs to buy a house. But the issue, if you look at the 2 biggest elements of price of anything, it's supply and demand. And our supply-demand inequity is not going away, especially in Atlanta, where people are flocking here. We're still going to have, so when your clients say, I'm going to wait till prices come down, or as they say in South Georgia, you may be waiting till the cows come home, because it may not be going to happen. And nobody sees it happening by any statistical data. Anyway, we appreciate you guys. Thanks a lot for your business.
First American home warranty, come on up. She brought us a delicious breakfast too. Chick-fil-A. Good morning. Good morning.
All right. Anybody not know what this is? Anyone? Like Bueller, anyone Bueller? We know what this is, right?
Yes.
All right, we're talking about the inflation, we're talking about changes happening. What are we doing when you're getting that listing? You want that listing off the market as soon as possible at the best price, right? So you want your cake baked, iced, sprinkled, all the buyers have to do is what? Put the candle on it? We're good? We might know it's older, we might know that they have some concerns, they want it clean too. Well, put a home warranty on it to make them come in like, hey, we are addressing things. We want you to be happy, we want things to be good. Put this on those signs, Jeff. Put it on the signs, make it happen. If you need more negotiations later, put a discounted 2-year rate. Talking about Carrie's class that she said, you know, you're addressing concerns. Reach out, what are those concerns? What are we concerned about? What can I help you with? What can I help maybe ease your clients' minds with? There's a lot going on. The inflation means that all of those systems are gonna continue to what? The cost of them are gonna continue to go up, all of them. So I'm here, those of you that I've worked with, thank you. Those of you I have not, I would love to have the opportunity to talk to you, whether it's a 10 or 15-minute refresh call. What is a home warranty? What makes First American stand out? I'm here for y'all. Shoot me a text, send me a call. I don't wanna flood your inbox with emails and just be like consistently, hey. I'm here, y'all know I'm here. I've got all my contact here. I just gave y'all the quick sheet. But shoot me a message and I can send over an email that has like a couple of bullet points, notes on, this is why I'm suggesting Eagle Premier over Basic. Do you have a new build house or newer built house and it's going to closing? You're trying to get some more new construction, duplexes, quads. Like, let me know what those questions are. Let me address the concerns and help answer those, because I just want to be here as a resource for y'all to be able to help and make things easier for this new upside down loop that we're going through, and hoping that it'll, you know, get to a little more even keel. But I would love to have a cup of coffee, or like I said, 10 or 15-minute call with you. I've got a Calendly link on my invite, so you can do it when it's best for you. It'll just pop up on my schedule and I'll be like, oh, I gotta call. I gotta answer some questions. But I don't know if there's any right now that you have. I don't know if anybody has written a home warranty recently and then had some questions about it later. But we can offer up to 60 days after closing. So if you had some clients that recently closed that you didn't address that, I've got a quick little sheet you can send over to them. So just let me know, and it's a quick email like, hey, I've got a partner, we were just talking about this. I know y'all didn't get one. If you're interested, she's happy to answer questions. I promise I won't bother them. I'll send them the info, I'll CC you so you know that I followed up with them, and kind of go from there. So just give me an opportunity to help y'all. That's about it. And while I'm here. Do we have any questions? Does anybody need one of these today? Raise your hand. No, not yet. All right. Let me know when you do. I can drop them off and have them here for you. All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Y4C2Ts, Jeremy,
Yes.
pick the one you like today.
Well, let's see. Communication, seek first to understand.
All right, why is that your first one?
Well,
Why is that one you think about today?
yeah, I think that as the market that we're going through right now, there's a lot of people with a lot of opinions and thoughts, and sometimes you got to kind of understand where they're coming from and really understand the market and the numbers. But that's why I'm here, is to share the numbers. So I think whether it's a relationship, which I think that probably speaks to a little bit more. I also think it probably works in some of the stuff that we do on a daily basis from a data perspective, and just when you're talking about stuff, make sure you understand what you're talking about, because a lot of people are repeating things that aren't necessarily worth repeating when it comes to market data.
I will believe that way, because he's right. First, try to understand. Your job is not to argue on your side. Your job is to say, well, tell me where you're coming from. Why do you think that way? So a lot of times I'm going to do it. So guys, so anyway, that's one of my favorite ones also. I got a lot of favorite ones up there. So Jeremy, thank you so much. Group coaching, understanding the amendment to address concern, Wednesday, October the 26th from 11 to 12. Guys, if you don't understand the amendment to address concerns, please jump on and come over here and enjoy group coaching, because it will help you be able to have a great script in how to understand the amendment to address concerns. Again, from 11 to 12 on the October 26th. Understanding how the cell can rest on a foundation of your home. It's a CE class, Thursday, October 27th from 9 to 12. So guys, come listen to Todd Hall. He'll talk to you about understanding the foundation of the house and some things you could look at. He looks really smart and you go, well, that's a crack going this way, so it probably is a okay foundation, but let me refer you to these people. So we've got a great class coming up on October 27th. Unconventional ways to lead generate, guys, with Sherry Pettis. Who knows about this? Arthur, do you?
This is young YP, and so Taylor is spearheading this.
Guys, so guys, this is, I mean, come and find new ways to lead generate, because guys, it's about finding the ways lead generating, and she can give you guys even one idea of ways that you can lead generate, guys. Great, and thank you so much for Taylor for putting this on for us.
This should be here.
Winning with 2-1 buy downs, Jeff Hart and Camilo and Tim. You want to say something about this, Camilo?
Yes, definitely. Well, we want to give you some updates about what is out there. So when you have that conversation where you play and have that great communication, so you can tell them about that, why the market is changing and what are the products of what we offer in terms of help them out with the loan. So yeah, launch will be served, and you know that we give good lunch.
So yeah, please, you need to learn about the 2-1 buy downs. It'll give you something to talk to your client about why they can afford to buy right now, even though the rates are a little bit higher than they were a year ago. So great. Group coaches, scary contracts. Monday with our wonderful broker, Sherry Arisby, a compliance person. So she is fabulous. Monday, October 31st, please come. The group coaching and hear about contracts. And Sherry is wonderful for that. So guys, thank you for putting it on your calendar.
And Jim, Sherry wanted me to stress this.
Okay.
Guys, you need to come to contracts class. We have seen so many doozy contracts lately. I mean, seriously, this is like an epidemic. So every time she shows up to teach contracts class, we should all be in the room.
The closing company seconds that.
Yes.
And I'm going to remind you one more time, guys, this is going to be the party of the century, our holiday party, the Punch Bowl Social annual holiday party. And we're putting the bill for this, guys, on December the 9th. Please put it on your calendar. We want you to be there. Yes, you can bring a date, or you can come on, whichever one you want to do, guys, but that is happening from 6 to 9 p.m. on December the 9th. And somebody tells me it'll go past 9 p.m. So guys, put that on your calendar. That's going to be a really fun new experience for our holiday party. Lessons learned, Rob.
All right. Lessons learned. So last week, as you all know, I was in the mortgage business for over 20 years, right? So as you mortgage guys, you can all raise your hand up, and ladies, raise your hand, right? They all think like I did that we know everything, right? But at the end of the day, it's someone a lot smarter than all of us that is making decisions that move interest rates and everything. So last week we had a great opportunity with Doug Duncan, Fed chief economist, and he gave some really good information. So how many people in the room were there? Give me one thing you took away.
Oh gosh,
Let me ask you a question.
yes.
So the guy who's helping set, not policy, but giving them great advice to set policy, right? What did he do in the last 30 days? He bought a house, right? Big wig guy, right? You think he makes millions and millions of dollars. I don't know what he makes. But you know what he got? A loan. So he closed the loan within the last 30 days, right? And here's someone asked, what would you say to your kids or anyone else, right, that's looking to buy right now? And it had nothing to do with interest rates.
What would I say?
So the prices are going to, I mean, the prediction is from Fannie Mae and is that the prices will go down, but very little before, before the end of next year. So in 2023, he said they're going to go down like 1 to 1.5%. So that's not enough to wait because you don't know what the interest rates are going to be. They could be higher. You're better off to buy now. And he basically said, which I've heard, be careful how you say this and what you say, because you don't wanna guarantee this, but, you know, marry the house and date the rate.
Right. So this is his exact words. If it's in my budget, then buy, right? Because people aren't buying and gonna stay in their house for just a year, right? They deal with volatility and everything. Anything is volatile in 12 months, right? You're buying a home and you're gonna live in it, right? What an opportunity. So it's in your budget. Reed said it earlier, people are now calling back and having these conversations. All right, well, what do I qualify for, right? So our job right now going forward, Rusty and I were talking earlier in the beginning of this year, I hate to say this, you didn't need a lead gen if you had people that were looking to buy and everything. You were just out fighting the fight. Now, you have to be the best at being consultants in dealing with people's emotion and motivation, not their interest rates. It's their emotion and motivation. That's it. So when rates were 8%, 7.75%, 15 years ago, people still bought houses.
How about one at 14 to 15%, so.
Yeah. At that period of time, I was in the mortgage business. I was getting paid like a shortstop for the Yankees. It was okay to buy a house at that time. So really, that's what I learned. And then, did I take one more? Thank you, Rob. We've been doing the Power Zone in the morning on Mondays and Wednesdays. We're gonna expand that to Mondays and Wednesdays, Power Zone, Tuesdays and Thursdays for an hour. We're gonna mastermind, because what I'm finding out is a lot of people in the room have a lot of questions. And I don't wanna spend Power Zone, which is a really cool way of saying, get your butt on the phone and start talking to people, instead of making a mastermind. So anybody have any feedback who have been coming? And I'm surprised at the people that are coming.
I've been really encouraged, and I've been here 3 years, but coming in, because I could just, it's very motivating to come in and learn and see the other experienced agents, and then also newer agents, and just remembering where I was, but it's really encouraging, and I love that everybody is very helpful to one another. Thank you for starting this up for us again.
You know, I think it's very motivational too. So like, you know, Angela was there, Eric Decker was there, and they were talking about what they went through when they first started and how they learned to kind of narrow their focus and things like that, which again, takes time off of our calendar, gives us time back so we don't repeat those mistakes. So I really appreciate all the senior agents that have been showing up. It's adding a ton of value.
Thank you for saying that. It's amazing to me that, so the other day we had 2 rookies of the year, right, in the room that were rookies of the year 2 years ago. So those that are showing up and continuing to do what they have to do, because going into this market with the changes, with interest rates and everything, if you are not doubling down on your lead gen or doubling down on your ability to answer questions about the fears and the emotion that the market has, I'm just gonna tell you, it's gonna be really hard. So you need to have more conversations, and I think people that like are coming into the room that you would think they get a free pass because they're doing well, are the ones that are in the room. So, yes.
I think Gary Keller said during the last shift that you have to do twice as much lead generation to get the same amount of business.
Yeah, so if you're doing none right now, you have the opportunity to double it just by picking up the phone once. Okay? Everyone laughs, but it's true. Yes, what, chili cook-off, you weren't here. You would have loved it.
Sure. I love food.
So what do we all do afterwards? We sit around and chat, right? And it's like a little mastermind. And Brenda Bashir was in the room, right? And so we're having a good time, giggling, laughing and everything. And this is what she says to me, and this was a Friday, and this is at 1:30. She goes, I gotta stop hanging out here. I gotta go upstairs. I gotta make my phone calls. Brenda, how much did she do? Like 19 million? 19 million in business last year, right? She says on a Friday afternoon at 1:30, I gotta stop talking. I gotta go upstairs. I gotta make my phone calls. Interesting. So another thing I learned.
So guys, so if you've been noticing lately, you've been getting a lot of emails from me, because I want everyone here who wants to grow their business to know that there's multiple ways you can grow your business here. You can come to this, where they'll hold you responsible for dialing, doing what you're supposed to do. You can sign up for coaching. We've got that going on right now. If you want to coach, we have Coach here, we have Coach Maps for you. Have every tool you need here. But someone said to me yesterday, and Jim, I'm having you on 10 o'clock. They said to me yesterday, said, well, Jim, last year was such a good year, last couple of years, that all you had to do was just put a sign in the yard, and everyone did well for the past 2 years. And I said, very interesting. But you still know that the last 2 years that only 1/3 of our agents capped?
1/3?
1/3, 30%. 31% to be exact.
Is that normal for?
We had the highest cap rate in the Rawls Group.
Whoa.
Number one.
What's our goal? What percentage?
My goal is 100%.
So why do you think that's true?
Because even during that hot time, people were not willing to lead generate. 95% of the agents do not lead generate even once a month, which means it's a planned activity. 95. Now you all are unusual because we beat it into you. We tell you constantly, you got lead generate if you don't have business. So guys, we want you guys to be successful, but you have to show up. And thank you all for showing up this morning. So guys, I'm gonna put Jeremy on. So I want to call people because I had Chuck and Joanne. Stand up for 1 minute, okay? Chuck and Joanne, stand up for 1 minute, okay?
Yay.
Let's welcome Chuck and Joanne. How long ago were we at Jenny Pruitt?
A long time, let's see, I'm trying to think. Was it about 25 years ago?
About 25 years ago. We were together with brokers at
together.
this little boutique company, so we've known each other for a long time.
Long
Then
time.
they left and came to this place called Keller Williams. And I went, no one's gonna go there.
Yeah.
And so anyway,
New company.
exactly right. And so they're here, of course, Liz, where's Liz?
Thank you.
There's Liz. She belongs to them.
Yeah, you are.
Exactly right. Exactly. Last name is Carr. Exactly right. Chuck. Let me tell you about Jeremy Trask. So Jeremy Trask, he was at Harry Norman and left to come here, and I went to his office at Harry Norman. Exactly right.
That's right.
Exactly right. Took over that office for a year, and then I left and followed him here to Keller Williams. Exactly right. So I follow people, guys. That is which is great. Jeremy moved how many years ago to Colorado?
7 years. We moved in June of 2015.
7 years?
Yeah,
Wow.
7 years.
Exactly right. And you love Colorado, huh?
I do. It's home.
Last question is it Colorado or Colorado?
It doesn't matter.
Exactly right.
You can say it however you want to say it.
I like it. It's like Porsche or Porsche.
All right.
If you own the car,
It's a Porsche.
exactly right. Actually, I call it Porsche.
That's how Hispanic names was Colorado.
What?
Colorado.
Oh, Colorado. I like that. I like that. Anyway, let's welcome Jeremy, our new chart master. Come on, buddy.
All right. Well, thank you for having me 2 minutes early. Well, that's good. So we can leave 2 minutes early, right? I saw a hand.
I was just gonna point out you were my Ignite teacher in Buckhead.
I
You
was.
were one of my
I was gonna say, it's really cool to see so many familiar faces. I look around and try to catch eyes with so many people that I've had an opportunity to meet. It feels good to, I said Colorado's home. That's where my family is. So that's why this home is where I grew up. It's good to be back there. But it's really good to be back here because this is kind of like my real estate home, the Rawls Group. This is where I feel like I really learned. I was at Harry Norman for 10 years and I learned how to sell houses. I didn't learn how to run a business. I didn't learn how to lead generate like.
How did I introduce your wife? Do that right now?
Yeah, so that's absolutely true. My wife is here, Michelle.
Yes.
She's joining me. She's partnering with me in the business as well. So we work together to produce these reports as timely as we can for you. Quick question though, why are you here? Anybody? Like, why are you here today? Why are you here right now?
To get more company established.
To
Learn how the market is going.
to learn how the market is going, to get comfortable with stats,
Scripts around the stats.
to learn some scripts around the stats. I see some nods, yeah, that sounds good.
I need loans.
I need loans. So he's here hoping that your business goes up so that he gets more loans. It's a win-win. That was one of the other life course you could teach, right? Win-win or no deal. What else?
Data.
Data? Hearing the numbers, hearing the truth. Speaking of hearing the truth, what are you hearing? What are you hearing out there?
Drop 20% next year.
What's that?
GMA says home drop prices will drop 20% next year.
Wow.
Yeah.
The real
Has anybody else heard that one? Home prices are gonna drop 20% next year?
Yes.
Yes.
Except there's some other companies, not Keller Williams, that's telling their agents that expect a 30 to 40% drop next year.
30 to 40% drop.
Wow.
That sounds fun.
In prices?
You guys are all just setting your business up for that, right? Prices dropping by 30 to 40%. Well, they did at once. Did anybody hear? Was anybody in the business when they did drop 27.5%?
Yep.
Okay, it happened pretty quick, didn't it? Overall, I mean, 2008 to 2011. And then what happened? Then it came back up. And then what did you say? Man, I wish I would have bought a house.
Yes.
Right?
2011, I said, guys, I'm telling you, y'all need to buy houses right now.
Yeah.
Did they listen to me? No.
Yeah.
Did I listen to me?
I was gonna say.
I did not.
I didn't listen to myself. That was part of the problem. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing now. So I got someone else to hold me accountable to get it done. Because it's sometimes a little challenging to hold yourself accountable and be that lead generation and make those phone calls, right? Sometimes it's good to have a group of people that support you in doing that. So I'm here to hopefully support you in learning some numbers, the data, and the information to help you feel more comfortable and confident. So a couple things I want to point out, just to sort of set the stage a little bit. Knowledge, that's why generally why we're here, to gain a little bit of information, a little bit of knowledge. And knowledge is confidence. Knowledge is confidence. So if knowledge is confidence, ignorance is fear, right? So nobody wants to be ignorant. Everybody wants to be knowledgeable. But if you live in fear, if you're scared about something, what does that tell you? If ignorance is fear, it might tell you that there's some information that you don't know that's causing you to be fearful, right? Does that make sense? Is that fair?
Yeah.
So what I want to do is give you enough information without overloading you with a bunch of data, give you enough information to help you feel confident that you've got the knowledge to eliminate that fear, to have some of the conversations about what's going on in the market, what's really happening in the market, and what that means for somebody's decision making. Does that sound like a good idea? Because I always thought about it like this. I think that nobody is going to use you in a real estate transaction unless they trust you. Would you agree?
Yeah.
So how do you earn their trust?
Educating them.
Educating them.
Being honest.
Being honest. It's character and competency that builds trust. It's like a triangle. So trust being the top, the two things that go into it, character and competency. That's what builds trust. And you know what's really cool in the real estate world? You can actually get trust by being really good at either one of them. So I can have an amazing character, like here, fantastic character, one of the best characters in a lot of different senses, right? Jim Alexander. And there's a certain level of trust that comes with that. If you just know him, you can have that level of trust due to his character. A lot of times family members that we know their character really, really well, we trust them even when they may be doing something they've never done before. Even when they're embarking on a new career like selling real estate and they just got their license, but they're such a good person that you trust them that they're gonna know how to figure it out and get it done because of their character. Then we have people on the other side, the competency side. We see their billboards, we see their signs, we see their stats, we see their numbers, and they just crush it, right? I don't have a clue what kind of character this person is, but man, they sell a lot of houses, so they must be good. I'm gonna sign with them. Do we know some of those people? Do we know that sometimes some of those people don't have the best character?
Yep.
And we find that out, right? Usually as a co-op agent, we're like, oh, I don't want to have to go up with them again, but we do it because we've got a lot of business because of their marketing and their competency getting the job done. But along the way, it starts to find out. So what we're doing today is I want to help you build a little bit of competency. I'm assuming your character is fantastic. You're here. And you don't have anything to work on there, right? Everybody loves you, everybody trusts you. And once you have a little bit more information, you're going to have a little bit more knowledge, and that's going to make you more confident, which also provides opportunities to be even more competent. So that's kind of the goal of the purpose today. So we're going to kind of dive into this. There are a couple different reports that you all get. And I say that jokingly because you get like 40 reports, it seems like, right? How many people go through every single page of every single report? What?
I believe that.
I believe that.
Yes.
So Chuck's in the back of the room going, yeah, I don't even know if I did that. So the reality is there's really a lot of information that we provide to you and or for you. And what I want to do is I want to kind of drill that down a little bit today to some of the meat and potatoes, if you will. Some of our favorite slides, some of our favorite go-to information where you're going to find what you need to find in this fast-paced, changing, shifting, whatever you want to call it, market that we're in. Fair enough? So I'm not going to cover everything. There's no way. I'm going to cover some of the stuff that's most important, and then we're going to just talk about where you can go get some of the other information if you so desire. So one of the things that we did this past month is realize that some of the quarterly information that you get, you'd like to have that a little bit more frequently, because looking at it a quarter at a time right now, it's moving so fast that it's sort of hard to keep up. We're looking so too far back in the rearview mirror in some cases with the quarterly numbers. So I decided to kind of work and massage the monthly a little bit to give you a little bit more data that comes out in the quarterly reports in a monthly version. So the monthly version is a little bit different. We have two of them. We have the MMO that you all are used to, and I encourage you to continue to look at that. That's where the interactive charts are. So if you are looking to see how just East Cobb is comparing to another section, or you just want to see the numbers for East Cobb in particular, that's where you'll want to go to find that. The new monthly market overview, or the new monthly market update, is done by county. So we had a lot of people that wanted to know, what would we just look at the counties? Can we just put all the areas? I just want to kind of see what the county looks like and look at it from there. And the reason being is that sometimes when you drill down to a small area and sales are dropping, the data starts to get a little bit wonky. Does that make sense? So when there's not very many sales in an area, and particularly when you start looking at a single price point in a single area, there may be very few sales. And one or two outliers, meaning somebody who sold their house and got 125%, and then another person sold their house and they got 82% of their original list price. Those things can really factor into the numbers, and they can make it, they can distort it a little bit. So broader numbers, or looking from a broader perspective, can sometimes help us understand the trends. And that's really what we're trying to figure out right now. I encourage you, you're still going to need to drill down when you start to do your comparative market analysis to help somebody really price their home. However, to really kind of see the trends and understand where things are going, you're probably going to need to pull back just a little bit and look at it from a little bit bigger perspective. So not the full macro view, because we don't need the national numbers. By the way, you heard some great numbers today. Interest rates 7.5 to 7.6. We heard about new home starts, 1.4 or 1.2 million, 1.4 million new home starts, which is still short of what we have from new home creation. So there is a, we've got an inventory problem. We had an inventory problem. We've had an inventory problem for a long time. That's been the issue. They're I don't know who they are. Somebody knows who they are. But they're pushing us towards an affordability problem. Does that make sense? Because they kind of want it to be a little less affordable so that they can control prices and keep inflation under control. So what we're experiencing right now is because that's what they want. Think about that for a second. This isn't 2008. That wasn't somebody saying, hey, push these buttons and make this happen. That was, we were doing things we shouldn't have been doing as an industry, and as a lot of different people involved in that, but it's not the same. This is like prescription. This is the medication that we need right now to control this market. That's what's happening. It might feel like, it's being forced on you. You might not want to go through this, but this is really how this market gets a little bit more healthy. So we're kind of moving in that direction. Just kind of understand that. This is actually being a little bit controlled, and they can pull it back a little bit. They can push it forward a little bit, and they're trying to do it really, really lightly so that we're not taking these big swings, like, driving down the road with somebody who just got their driver's license. Speaking of which, you heard the term deceleration. Do we understand what that means? Tell me what deceleration means.
Showing up less fast.
Going less fast. Yeah, slowing down. Does that mean that stuff is deteriorating? Does that mean that it's going below zero? No, it doesn't. What it means is that for the last 2 years, we were traveling at 140 miles an hour on Georgia 400. Has anybody gone 140 miles an hour on Georgia 400? Come on.
Rusty.
While he's looking at stats.
Rusty likes to hit the gas.
Okay. Has anybody got 140 miles an hour anywhere in a car ever in their life?
I don't think so.
I usually have one person. One person's like, yeah, I think I got that. They didn't want to talk about it. It was in high school. Their dad's car. So, can you imagine driving that fast? Can you? Who's come close? 110, 120? Yeah, there's some people here. We hit that every day on Johnson Fair.
But you get there and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
You don't stay there long.
No, you don't stay there long. Now, can you imagine driving 140 miles an hour on Georgia 400 for 8 hours straight? First of all, you run out of road. We know that, so we can't use that road anymore. Let's find a longer road. Let's just say 285, because this is loop. Right? 140 miles an hour for 8 hours straight. Imagine that. Imagine going that fast for that long, and then slowing down to 65 miles an hour. What's it gonna feel like? It's gonna feel like I stopped. It's gonna feel like I'm not even moving. It's gonna feel like this is horrible. I can't do this. I gotta just get off the road. I don't even wanna go this slow. This is stupid. I could walk faster than this. Now, what's the reality? What's the speed limit? 65. Why? Because that's the speed you should drive to be safe on the roads. And actually, on 285, there is no speed that's safe. But that's what they tell us. You want to drive 65 because that's what's safe. Well, that's not what we've been doing. We go on 140 miles an hour in real estate world for a couple of years. And now we've slowed down to, guess what? How much? 100. We're still going way over the speed limit and we're freaking out. That's what I'm gonna show you. We're still going over the speed limit. That's why things are still adjusting. That's why they're still pushing the brakes a little bit, because we're still over the speed limit.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
What he just said right there, in those terms about driving fast and doing that, that's the exact story you want to explain to sellers and buyers, because what does it go to? Emotions.
Yeah.
Right? And they get it.
Sounds like an Instagram reel to me.
So,
Yeah.
so a lot of what I'm going to share with you, I speak in terms of scripts a lot. So I encourage you. I'll try to remember to tell you. Oh, by the way, I'm talking to a client right now. A lot of what I just said, yeah, I'm talking to a client. That's exactly what I would share. Make sure they understand what the market's doing. It's decelerating. And what that really means. It means that we were doing this for a period of time. And imagine what that feels like when you slow down. And the reality is we've only slowed down to 100. It feels like we've slowed down quite a bit, but we're not probably where we're going to end up. It's going to slow down a little more. And that's going to be okay because we need to. And that's what's being prescribed right now. All right, so we're going to dive into it. The first monthly is the new one. It's this is the all counties or the counties MMO. Can you see this okay?
No,
You go
you
in.
need to turn the light on.
Probably I didn't like. Can you do a presentation mode? Pop it up.
You know the page.
We're gonna go through a couple of them. Yeah. That's the biggest you can get. All right, the next slide. So this is what all of the county reports are gonna look like. We'll click through them later, but I wanna just kind of spend a little bit of time here. So it looks a little different than the other MMOs that you've gotten. It's a little bit different, obviously, than the quarterly stats. So one reason is you just see a bunch of numbers. There's some colors up there, so we try to make it look kind of pretty, but it's just a lot of numbers. So what I know is that when we're talking about data that looks like this and a chart that looks like this, sometimes it's a little hard to share with your clients. I get that because it's just a lot of numbers. So we want to kind of make sure you understand a couple things. One is we've added Learn the Lingo here at the bottom, and Learn the Lingo just helps describe what each one of those are. So if you decide to send this to somebody ahead of time, or you're going to share it in terms of marketing or whatever, there's some stuff there that'll help kind of explain it a little bit. And it also is a good tool for you to just refresh your memory when you're talking about some of the numbers on here. Something that got added in this report that's not really in some of our other reports is how many new listings were taken during the month of September. This is a monthly report, so just keep in mind it says September at the right-hand side there at the top. So how many new listings were taken in the month of September? We had 6,834. Where? In the 8-county area. And the counties are up there at the top. So, and they're in here as well. So it's just kind of the metro area all put together, 6,834 new listings that were taken. A new listing is, it can be in any current status, but it was taken during the month. In other words, it could have been taken on the 3rd and went under contract on the 10th, or the 4th or the 3rd, right? Because that's what they did. They go under contract relatively quickly in a lot of cases, and regardless of the status, it's still a new listing taken that month. It may also be a pending listing now, but it was a new listing at one point. Also, we have some closed listings that were taken during the month. They might actually be listed on the 1st or the 2nd and closed by the end of the month. Those are going to be counted there as well. Expireds and withdrawns could have been listed and then pulled off the market. It's still going to show up as a new listing. It will also show up in the expires and the withdrawns. So it's being accounted for. New listings are a great gauge to see how many people are still moving forward with the decision to sell their home. 6,834. How many active listings do we have? 11,316. That's how many active listings there were on the market. Those active listings, it's a snapshot in time. That snapshot is September 30th, or the last day of the month in which we're doing the report. So that's when those come out. Okay?
And that does include the new listings.
And that includes the new listings that were listed that month or listed at any point. It's really just if they are in current active status, period, available to be purchased, they're in the active, they show up at the active listings. Now that, again, that's a snapshot in time. So it was just on the 30th of the month. On the 31st or 31st, on the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, that the number changes, and it was different on it was on the 29th. So it's just a snapshot in time. We use it to set things like months of inventory, absorption rate, and we use that number for some of that. Under contract, it's any status that is considered under contract. Pending sales, under contract, kickout, contingencies, whatever shows up as under contract or pending, it's going to be in that category. Then you have the pending ratio. This is where you start to get a little bit of a gauge. Pending ratio, it's just a factor of how many are under contract versus how many are active. So we look at that ratio and it just kind of gives us a little bit of a gauge. Is it going up? Is it going down? And we track it. Number of closed sales, 4,670. We have the median price. Months of inventory, absorption rate. Those two things work together. When the months of inventory is going up, the absorption rate is going down. When the absorption rate is going up, months of inventory is going down. So those two things work opposite of each other. But that's where we start to, that's where the colors are, and that's where you start to see, are we in a buyer's market or a seller's market? 6 months of inventory, we know that, right? It says if we're at 6 months of inventory, six months of supply, we're in a balanced market, somewhere in that 6 to 7 months. Below that, we're in a seller's market, and above that, we're in a buyer's market. So that's what sets that standard. And this is what the color coding is. So everywhere you see green is a seller's market. Where you see red is a buyer's market, and where you see yellow is a balanced market. What do you see mostly on this chart? Okay.
Hey, Jeremy.
Yep.
Remind me again, the 11,000 listings, that is how many counties?
That's 8 counties.
8.
Yeah, and we have just Cobb County in here too. So you can pull the individual county and see how many how many new listings in Cobb, how many sales in Cobb. That is here for you as well. But just know, generally speaking, you're seeing a lot of green. That means seller's market. Okay. Now we'll move to the next. Well, yeah, let me just quickly. So sold above list price, we're tracking that, even though that's starting to become less of a thing, but it's still a thing. In this case, 40% of everything that's sold in September sold above list price, or at or above list price. It's really what that says. I know it says sold above list price, but it's really equal to or above, just so you know. It kind of says that down here. Price reductions, of course, we're tracking price reductions because we know that those have they factor into the original sale to list price and days on market down the road. And we're going to talk about that in the next little part of this. And then you have, just what I was saying, the sale to list price ratio with price reduced and the sale to list price ratio if it's not price reduced. And those are very different. We're going to dive into that a little bit when we get to the quarterly, but that information is here for you. Same thing with days on market and then the number of failed listings, what expired or was withdrawn during the month of September. In this case, 30% of all of the finalized listings, meaning it either closed or it was expired or withdrawn. A pending sale is not a finalized listing. It's still in the MLS in a status that could change. It could go back to active, it could go to expired or withdrawn, or it could go to closed. We're hoping that it goes to close because it's under contract and it's our deal. So we want to see it closing, but we also know that that doesn't always happen. So that's a finalized listing. Does that make sense? Am I doing okay? Going too fast?
I just have a really quick question about
Yes.
listings taken. Is that more for us as agents, or would we talk about that with the client?
You know, that's really up to you. I think that it's, a lot of people feel comfortable to know that they're not the only ones. Sometimes they think, should I just wait? I don't know if any of my friends are selling right now. But the reality is 6,834 people put their house on the market in the month of September. And, you know, we had 4,670 of them close. So, I mean, yeah, I think it's good to share. I think the question is a good question. It's really good information for you to know, and we track it. But it's also good to share and let them know that, hey, lots of people are choosing to sell at home, and a lot of them are succeeding at a high level. So let's get the job done. All right, so the next chart, each one of these counties in the all-county area comes with kind of like 2 pages. The second page gives you 2 looks. One is a month-over-month look, meaning how did September 2022 compare to August of 2022? And how did September of 2022 compare to September of 2021? So we do a month-over-month look and a year-over-year look. And the reason that we're doing this is because a lot of the data that you get, like the new home sales starts and interest rates or whatever, a lot of it is comparing month over month. So a lot of the national information that we get, they're giving you data that says this is what the growth is or the decline from the previous month. And sometimes what we're getting ready to show you is that's seasonal. Sometimes these changes, these drops are seasonal. They don't really share that with you because that might make it not seem like a big deal, and then you're not going to click to read, and then they're not going to have the readership levels that they need, and they can't sell the advertising that they need to sell. So headlines like sales dropped 15% in the month of September sells. Sales dropped a seasonal amount in the month of September doesn't. Does that make sense? Yes. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So month over month, we're tracking all the metrics that were on the first page and how that compared to August of 2022. And then you have over to the right side, green letters if it's up in a little green arrow, or red numbers, numbers if it's down with a little red arrow. So you can quickly glance at it and just sort of follow the numbers or follow the color and say, okay, how many closed listings were there? Month over month, it was down 8.7%. I can come over and say year over year, it's down 29.5%. So just those are the numbers. That's what it says for all of the areas. We can look at prices, which, by the way, I'm going to spend just a few extra seconds talking about prices. Would you agree that prices are probably what people are most concerned about? I don't care how many homes sell or how many are listed. How much am I going to get? How much am I going to walk away with? Are prices going down? Are they still going to go up? What's happening? That's what everybody wants to know. How is this affecting price? That's the key. How does this relate to what I'm going to get, the price that I'm going to get? How does this relate to what I should list my home for? And we know that when we walk somebody through some of the quarterly numbers, they quickly understand how important pricing is. And they're able to make a more educated decision when they work with you than when they have a conversation with any other realtor. They're not having the same conversation with you as they do with other people because you have more information. You're guiding them and leading them to help them understand that pricing is key, and making the right choice up front is really going to lead them down the right path. So prices, median sale price. It was $418 in August, it dropped to $407.5, down by 2.6% month over month. Year over year, it went from $360,988 in September of 2021 to $407,500 in September of 2022, up by 12.9%. Okay, so year over year, 12.9%. What does that look like historically? I'll give you a hint. It looks like 100 miles an hour. Yeah. It's not 140, but it's not the speed limit either. It looks like about 100 miles an hour. It's still quite a bit. 12.9% historically annual median increase is a pretty solid number. Would you agree? Yeah. Okay. What's an acceptable number?
4 to 5.
3%? Somebody's happy with 3. Anybody else happy with 3? 4%. 4%. Jim needs a little more. 5. Anybody happy with 2? No. Okay. We've got a rough crowd here. 3 is the minimum. 3 is the minimum. All right. So the next slide. Thank you. This is a expanded version of a slide that we've already presented for you or have for you for a number of years. And it used to stop at 6 months. And I said, we probably need to look at a little bit longer. So we're pulling this back so that you can see September of 2021 and September of 2022 in the same view, okay? And you see every month in between. Now, this is a lot of numbers. So you're gonna have to figure out what you wanna focus on. What you focus on, expand. I'm gonna focus on pricing. So I'm gonna just keep that in mind. Right now, because closed sales, I know that there are fewer closed sales. That's by prescription. They're pushing the brakes. They want the fewer sales. I know that's happening. But what is going on with pricing? That's what people really want to know. So if I look at the median sale price and I see this trend of over the course of 2022, it got to June of 2022 and it peaked at $440,000. Median sale price for the 8-county metro area of Atlanta. Yes,
Can
Teresa.
you be sure and talk about median versus average?
Yeah, so that's a really good point. Thank you so much. Median is half of the numbers are below that number and half of the numbers are above that number. That's where we get to median. And the reason we use median is because when you start to look at averages, the outliers can have a big factor into the numbers that can distort and make the numbers look different than they really, really are. And it's even more important because this is the MLS, people. Have you ever downloaded 15,000 records of MLS and looked at them? If you did, you would know why we use medians and we never use averages. Or we try not to. We use averages when we can control the data, but when it's not controlled and it's up to all of the 46,000 agents putting in their own data in a lot of cases, it's just some of what goes in is crazy. It really is. So we don't really use averages for that purpose, and we stick to medians, meaning half of the numbers were above and half were below. It sort of takes out the outlier effect. Is that fair enough? And that is on the Learn the Lingo pages, by the way. So it's a new thing, Teresa, that we added. Learn the Lingo, it describes what median is. So in case you get to it again and you'll have a memory there. So prices we know in June, 440,000. In July, I don't know if you can see it, it went to 425. It went down. Uh-oh. Right? August, it went down again. September, it went down again. So what does that mean? I don't know. Do you know?
Price reductions.
It means the prices have gone down the last few months. But what does that really mean? Okay, well, let's take a look. Here's how I kind of decipher. I say, well, has it ever happened before? Let's talk about these numbers. Has it ever done this between July and September before? I mean, it kind of sounds like these are headlines and this is big news. Like this is the first, sales and prices are dropping. The sky is falling. Well, let's take a look. Did you know in 2014, would you consider 2014 a good market, a bad market, an average market?
Seller's market.
Seller's market still was fine if you were selling houses in 2014, right? There was a lot of business. People made a lot of money. It was a decent market. Nobody was complaining. Prices were going up. Everything was fine. Prices were going up in 2014. Prices were going up in 2015. They were going up in 2016. Going up in right? We know that. You can look at history and see that. But what did they do between July and September? So between July and September of 2022, I'm going to give you that number first because I just gave you the numbers, but it dropped 7.39%. It's called 7.4%. So from 440 to 407, 500 was a 7.4% drop in sales price this year, 2022. 2014, guess how much it dropped between July and September? Anybody? Huh?
7%.
7.9. It dropped more between July and September of 2014 than it did between July and September of 2022. Yep. Okay. Those are the numbers, people. I'm not making this up. This is the real stuff. Okay. 2015, 7.2%, it dropped between July and September. In 2016, it dropped 8.9% between July and September. Is anybody getting a little tingling sensation like, this is good? Like, this doesn't make me, I don't feel as bad as I did a minute ago. Like, really? Guess what? 2017, it dropped 8.8%. 2018, it dropped 7.8%. So far, just a seasonal drop, isn't it? So far, this is just sort of what we expect every fall. Did you know that already, though? Yeah, you did. You knew that. You just didn't know it. Does that make sense? You knew it, but you were a little bit nervous to say it, because if I say, hey, this is just a seasonal drop, what if it's not? What if I'm not right? My gut tells me it is. Well, there's the numbers there. Now, do I know what October's gonna look like? Do I know what November, December? No, but I will pretty shortly. And I'm gonna keep tracking this for you. I'm gonna keep sending it to you. And I will tell you, if the market continues to decelerate, and we get down to the speed limit and prices reflect that, and we go below a seasonal adjustment, you're gonna hear about it. But right now, we're not seeing any different than we've normally seen.
And Jeremy, not that you know this answer, but do you attribute that to the houses that are left in that time of year, or the leftovers that are overpriced anyway, and that's why they didn't sell it, so that's why they sold for less?
Yeah.
Is that a logical reason?
I didn't dive that deep into it, you know, to really look at the houses themselves. But yes, we tend to see more failed listings at the end of the year, and we tend to see more price reductions when we get into the third and fourth quarter. That's a general trend. Good point.
So what's a script for getting somebody to list right now then? I mean, this is like obviously not something you really want to share with them.
Well, you know,
this is normal that you're going to get less this time of year, so then they're going to say, oh, maybe I should wait until February.
Yeah, that's fine. You wait till whenever you want to wait. But the reality is your house, the value of your home isn't going down. It's just the market, when we see market adjustments in price, it's seasonality, meaning that a lot of people with more expensive homes have decided to pull their home off the market right now. And more homes as a percentage of the total sales are being sold at a lower level. So would you agree that sometimes wealthy people have a few more options? Sometimes they don't have to sell right now. Sometimes they tell you things like, if I get what I want, then I'll sell. But I don't need to sell. I'm not in a rush to sell. I don't have to do this right now, but it seems like a good time, and if I can get what I want, I'll do it. Have you ever heard that before? Okay, so that happens every single year. Peak of the market, they priced it too high, didn't sell. September, they're like, nah, pull off the market, try it again next year. But not everybody has that ability or that flexibility. Some people are moving across the country. Some people have already bought another home. They have to sell it. We got to reduce it. We got to do whatever we got to do to get it sold.
Or they can buy the next house at 7% less as well.
Yeah, so it's just that's just the sense of the market. It's a good question though. It's a little tough to answer.
I'm saying it's another look, because that's the macro. You'd have to really micro into the county. You'd have to micro into the price point, price range.
Exactly.
Because each category is going to be different.
Each one's going to be a little different. This is just an overall view and understanding the trend and really sort of combating the headlines that are out there. The prices are dropping. Typically, it's a seasonal thing, and we're in a typical seasonal pattern right now too. Okay. By the way, 2019. What happened in 2019? We were kind of, things started to get a little bit weird. You know, it really, we started to see, that's when 100% sale to list price ratio, like we started to see offers going above list. And we've seen it before, but not on the scale we did. 2019 started to reveal some things about the supply and demand that should have caused us to pause a little bit, but it didn't. Because it was fun, we were accelerating. It was like, oh, cool, man. Let's just push it a little bit more with the right foot. See if we can get to 140.
Yeah.
Right? And that's sort of what happened in 2019. Then in 2020, I don't even know what happened. It was this thing. How come nobody's wearing a mask right now? So we had, you know, something that caused us to just stop, like literally slam on the brakes and almost come to a screeching halt. Interestingly enough, we stepped on the gas again and took off like a banshee. Like, I mean, this was like the General Lee being chased, right? We were jumping bridges. We were going really, really out of control. We were going so fast. We were leaving skid marks on the highway, just taking off in 2020. What happened in 2020 between September and July? It went up 4.3%. You remember what I've told you about every single year leading up to that point that I was tracking? I mean, I could have went further back to 2019 or 14, but it went down. In that year, it went up. That's an anomaly, is it not? Not the norm. Would you agree? 2021, it dropped 3.5% between July and September. So those are the real numbers. What happens in this season over the last few years? We know that 2020 and 2021 are probably outliers and not really what we should be gauging this against. Fair enough? All right, so then we'll move into the next slide. I'm going to have you kind of click through these till we get to something that looks different. Does that make sense? You'll find it when you get there. Keep going. So you got Cherokee, Cobb, you have all the counties, and it's all the same, not the same data, but the same charts with that specific information for that chart. Then you get to a chart that looks a little different. These are designed partly for to be a little more consumer friendly, something for you to capture and send out if you'd like to. I wouldn't just broad send this to anybody, but it can certainly help educate some folks that are thinking about selling their home and helping you build that level of competence that says this person knows something that not everybody else that I'm talking to knows. They're giving me information that I'm not getting from anywhere else. That's what raises that level of competency, which then increases your opportunity for trust and sales. So this puts all the counties together, and then all the numbers for active listings, month over month, whether they're up or down, year over year, whether they're up or down, pending listings, and the pending ratio. The next slide goes into sales absorption rate and months of supply. There's a little sort of headline opportunity up at the top. So absorption rate and months of supply measure the speed of the market, which tells us if we're in a seller's market, buyer's market, or balanced market. The higher the absorption rate or the lower the months of supply, the faster homes are selling, and a fast-paced market usually benefits the seller. Just some information to see here. But when you look at the colors and you see closed listings, Douglas County is the only one that went up month over month, 144 sales, so not a lot of numbers there. But generally you see red, lower closed sales, month over month and year over year. Absorption rate has gone down and months of supply is going up. So that's kind of what we're looking at. Next slide, median prices. You see kind of year over year, a lot of green, month over month, a lot of red, but we just learned month over month and red this time of year, sort of normal. So don't freak out. Sold above list price is all red. Fewer homes are selling at or above list price pretty much month over month and year over year. We know that because that's, again, by prescription. Next slide, price reductions. Lots of more price, many more price reductions now than there were last month or last year in most cases. So we're seeing a higher level of price resistance by buyers who are forcing sellers to be more realistic in the pricing. Okay, next slide. Price reductions, how that affects days on market. Each county, not price reduced, it's here. Next slide. Effect on negotiations, the sale to original list price. How having a price reduction affects that. We're going to talk a little bit more about it when we go to the quarterly. The next slide is expired and withdrawn. So how many failed listings there are in that month, what the percentage of the total finalized listings are, and what the median price of those failed listings was. Okay, so that's now tracked every single month, and it's a quick view for you to look at the county, see what it's doing, and have some information for you that helps. So you go out on a listing presentation and you have your quarterly stats and numbers with you, and it's got the pretty charts and the graphs, and you have some current month data to just overlay on top of that. So I wouldn't necessarily show the chart, but you could maybe write something on the chart you're using, or just have a little note so that you can give them the updated, hey, in September, this is what it was. You know, quarterly, it was this, but in October, this is what it was. Third quarter, it was this, but in December, here's what it was, right? So you have the current information to be able to talk about what percentage of closed sales were price reduced and how that affected the sale to list price ratio and how that affected days on market, because ultimately that's what they're most concerned about. Okay? How much can I expect to negotiate? Because I need to kind of understand what I'm going to walk away with. Okay, and I think that should be it. We'll go into just some information about reports, and we'll move on to the next report. Everybody doing okay? Yeah, I understand that this is a lot of numbers and a lot of stuff. So if you're on this side of the room and you try to sneak out, it's okay. People over there. This room was listing to the left when we started. They knew it, I guess, what I'm going to say. I get it. There's a lot of numbers here. Just understand two things. You can go to the, keep going a little bit, another couple, we get to the numbers. But we'll stop there. We'll start there real quick. Go back. Everybody knows they don't have FMLS areas anymore. Yeah, it was sort of like a weird thing. First of all, the FMLS areas were sort of a weird thing, actually. You may not know that because it's what we were used to. But it's like a lot of other areas, they don't have that. They never had it.
Well, it's hard to translate it every time.
It was hard to translate it. It didn't mean anything to anybody but the realtor, for the most part, you know, but we used it a lot and we had those numbers. And it was a great way to track kind of the differences between some of the popular areas. Well, I know, and we heard, y'all still wanted that somehow to be able to differentiate areas. And we took it upon ourselves, Chuck and I, about a year ago. He just pointed at me. He's like, we got to figure this out. I was like, okay. And then I just like took it home and just figured it out. It was really a mess. But what we decided to do was we figured if we're gonna make some changes to the areas, we might as well go ahead and try to improve upon what they have done, because some of the lines that were drawn back in whenever they drew those lines just sort of didn't make a whole lot of sense in some cases. So we tried to sort of adjust them accordingly. So the areas look somewhat similar to the way they used to, but some of the lines are a little bit different. For instance, East Cobb looks different now. There's a Central Cobb and an East Cobb and North Cobb and a Northwest Cobb and Southwest Cobb, so on and so forth. So there's actually, I think, one extra area in Cobb County. Most of them have the same. We added Area 21 in South DeKalb, which just wasn't there for a number of years. So we've kind of just made this to where it makes a little bit more sense with the way some of the lines are drawn. Some of them are the same, pretty much. Vinings is the same as it used to be, but we used zip codes and school districts to come up with it. Okay, so that's where, generally speaking, sometimes city, but you know, it's county, zip code, city, mostly zip codes and school districts. We're used to do that. The key is here, the numbers are there. You cannot put those numbers into MLS and do a search. FMLS, it doesn't work. We've heard that a couple times, like, oh, I was trying to do a search, I put it, it doesn't work, it could got nothing. I'm like, no, because those are just our numbers. FMLS has no idea this exists, right? So just know that that's really for your information to understand where these areas are. And when you start drilling down by area, you know, getting a micro look, you need to kind of understand the key. All right, next page. When you do when you're looking at the quarterly report, understand that everything between where we just started, so where the map is, where the colored map is, to the page that has the summary on it. It's the bulleted description of what we just read about. Between there, that's kind of those are the most important slides. Does that make sense? That's probably where you want to pull some of the slides you're going to use in your presentation from. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't look at the rest of the 69 pages that are after that. There's a lot of information there. However, I also understand that you're just not going to look at all 90 some pages of this. I get it. The meat is before the summary. And then after the summary, there's a lot of great information that you may want to see, some trends on pricing, some trends on, a lot of trends are there, but we also try to put the monthly data there versus, I'll show you in a little bit, the quarterly data versus by price point. I think we try to put the price point stuff up front. So just know that that's how that's laid out. Anybody disagree that Keller Williams sells more houses than anybody else? Okay. So here's the numbers, that's what they are. The next chart, is the American Idol chart. You've seen this one before, right? This is why everybody's here. They just want to see the American Idol chart. I'm just kidding. Does anybody skip by this when you're having a conversation with a client? Has anybody showed this to a client? Couple people. All right.
I'm so sorry. I'm trying to follow along with what has been emailed to us. How do I find it? Here.
It's a really good question. I'm gonna let Kimberly, do you want to show us that real quick?
You can also find it in your intranet link.
Okay.
And the client resource.
And what's it called? What's the title of it?
This is detached
Third quarter.
third quarter, no.
Yeah.
This is not the MMO. So we just moved away from the MMO and now we're on third quarter.
MMO was the monthly.
MMO is a monthly
No,
market
quarterly. Okay,
overview.
thank you.
Very good question. MMO, monthly market overview. I have realized after doing this, not just today, but yesterday as well, and some other feedback, that we may change the names of some of these reports to give them a little bit more distinction between one another, so that they're a little easier for you to go find, grab, and know what you're looking at, and know what is where. So the detached quarterly report is our largest report. It is where all of the charts are going to be that you could possibly, that we produce, they're there. Some of the other reports don't have all of the charts that the detached report has. We have a in-town report that just looks at certain areas of in-town, meaning Atlanta, downtown Atlanta. Then we have a condo report, condo and townhomes, that looks at the same areas of the detached, but it's just specifically for condos and townhomes. Then we have an all counties report that comes out every quarter, and the all counties report is a lot of the outlying counties that aren't included in the 8 metro county area. So we have a report for those areas. And then we have a Forsyth report and a Dawson report. So if you are specific to, you really want to know what's going on in Forsyth County or Dawson County, there's a separate report for those. So there's a lot of reports out there, but the detached single family report is what we're talking about now, and that's where most of the data is. Yes.
Why did you separate particular Forsyth and Douglas?
It was done at a time when the performance was different and they weren't included in these reports. Now we include Forsyth as part of the metro, but it wasn't for a while. Dawson is not. So Dawson, they ultimately what happens is somebody's paying for it and you guys are benefiting. I'm producing it for somebody, they're paying for it, and you guys just kind of get it as your package. So it's just an extra benefit. I know that you probably aren't going to use it, but you might, depending on if you happen to go to Forsyth or Dawson, which is above Forsyth. Another question? Tennessee. Yeah. Any question? Okay. So American Idol chart. 2006, this is what it looked like. Gray lines, those are the people who think they can sing, right? Those are the active listings. The red lines, those are the ones who actually can sing. Those are the ones that closed during the month. There are a lot of people who thought they could sing and a few people who actually got the golden ticket. We zoom to 2011, the market changed. Jim told us to buy a house. None of us did it. No, I'm just kidding. Who bought a house in 2011? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yes, right? Did you know that that was the absolute bottom? No. You guys are so honest. That's character. So then we 12, 13, 14, 15. So remember those years I was telling you about, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. What does that look like? It looks like a pretty steady, level, below 6 months of inventory. So it's still a seller's market, but it wasn't like a crazy seller's market. It was like, okay, it was a good market. And that's why I pointed that out when we're looking at where we are today versus where we are in 14, 15, 16, 17. It's there. Now what happened in 2021? I don't know if you can see, right? But the gray lines disappeared. All of a sudden, there was no active listings, like gone. How do we have more sales than we had available inventory? Right? So craziness started to show up. We had more sales than we had inventory. Then that meant months of inventory was like basically almost nothing. And now we see it moving. How much has it moved, right? Well, it still doesn't compare to anything we've already seen. We're still, generally speaking, we're still like below everywhere. It's still a strong seller's market. It's still 100 miles an hour. It's still moving at a pretty good clip. Now again, this is looking in the rearview mirror at the third quarter. Even the September report I just showed you, looking backwards a month, but as we start to track this monthly, just know that's why these MMOs are so important to keep up with it monthly. But the quarterly report, just understanding this has got the charts, it's a little easier to kind of walk through and see it visually. I shared the numbers with you, but when you see it visually, it can sometimes resonate at a little bit different level and help connect. Same way with your clients when you're out having a conversation with them. So the green line, 6 months of inventory, we talked about. The black line that's tracked there is the months of supply or months of inventory. Okay. Next slide. Any questions on the? Just kind of skipping over it real quickly. Next chart. I call this a fora because there's 4 charts on one slide. Guess what? I know you can't read it. I know that when you're presenting it to your clients, they can't see the numbers either. And that's okay because these are the absolute basic numbers that pretty much you can get at any level at any point. How many sales year to date are we up or down? It's usually tracked in pretty much any metrics, FMLS, wherever. So we tell you that. In this case, the red box at the top right-hand side is going to give you a description of what the chart says. In a few cases, and I'll point that out, I've included stuff in the red chart that may not even be on there, or in the red box, it may not even be on the chart because it's important to understand where some of those numbers come from, and I'll show this to you. But in this case, we've got 4 data points. We've got the bullets up top, or the check marks. Year-to-date sales are lower by 16.3%. Sales price was higher by 14.3%. In the quarter, remember monthly, we said it was 12.9. So we know that there's some adjustments that happen monthly versus quarterly. Sale to list price ratio 99.7%, which is lower by 0.8 percentage points. And the median days on the market went from 15, or is at 15, up by 5 days. So it was at 10%, which means there's a 50% increase in the median days on market. Is 15 bad? No? Would you take a listing if you could sell it in 15 days for sure? Oh, I was just making sure.
I mean, for us, it's good because it gives us an opportunity to get more clients.
Yeah.
We weren't getting that opportunity when they sold in 2 days.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, it's true, you know, and we'll talk about that. I'm going to take off my jacket just a tap now, which will probably just make. All right, and the next slide. Oh, by the way, yeah, go to the next slide. Thank you. Maybe. My email address, jeremytrask@kw.com. If you don't know it, it's pretty much at the bottom of every page, not every single page like the one I just showed you, but it's there. You guys feel free to send me an email. If you get to a point where you have a question, you're in a pickle, you need something. I won't always be able to get back to you immediately, but most of the time I can respond in a fairly timely manner. And I want to help you. I want to help you succeed using these numbers. They're important. And the more you can understand them, the more I can answer, if I can, answer your questions, the better. So just know it's there, please use it. This is the change in numbers sold. So a minute ago, I said year-to-date sales were down by 16.3% or something along those lines. Doesn't really matter. Quarterly though, just in the quarter over quarter, it was down 27.3%. Now, generally speaking, if I look at this from 2020, 21, and 2022, and I see third quarter of 2022 being down 27.3%, and all the rest of them don't look like that, it kind of makes me a little bit nervous, doesn't it? I kind of look at that and I go, it sort of doesn't look good. In fact, it's lower than the drop we had when we shut down.
Yes.
So it's kind of just, it makes you pause for a second. And then you kind of got to understand what this is really showing you. This is third quarter as compared to that third quarter. This is this third quarter compared to that third quarter. Okay? So in other words, if this third quarter went up by 12.3%, and then this one dropped by 7.5, it was 7.5% of that one that was up. Same thing as it kind of translates forward. So that effect of this 22% increase, or 2021, 22.6% increase, you see here is 11.6% less than that number that was way up. Now, we get to the third quarter, this was down from that third quarter, which was up. This one was down from that third quarter. So again, this chart can be a little bit confusing. And it's in here so that you can kind of understand the trend, but looking at just the last 2 years is probably unfair for this chart. So I'm gonna say, when you see these quarterly numbers that are just comparing this quarter to last quarter and the quarter before over the last couple of years, take it with a little bit of a grain of salt, because the last 2 years were really abnormal. I would focus a little bit more on some of the longer trends, and I've got some other charts that I think are more important, okay? So this is gonna be here. It may change a little bit as I move forward, so that when you're going out, you really have what you should have to have a conversation. So the next slide looks at the monthly sales, again, kind of tracking it in a different view. Red line is 2022. Light gray line is 2021, the dark gray line or black line is 2020. So for the first part of the year, we were sort of tracking right along the last couple of years. And then we know that in 2020, there was a weird dip, right? And then it went way up. 2021 sort of steadily went up, but the last 3 data points, really 4, are below both 2020 and 2021. So we know that there are fewer sales happening. And again, that's what that previous chart was showing. There are 27.3% fewer sales. We know there are fewer sales happening, fewer closed sales. And we can say that that is by prescription. Again, that is what I don't know who they are. I already said that, but I don't know who they are, want to have happen. That's how they can kind of control the craziness that we're seeing in the market right now. So that's the intent to do that. So it's by prescription. It's working. All right, next slide is speed of the market. In other words, how everybody understands that, and we know this, that in your first few weeks of being on the market, first few days in some cases, are when you're most likely to get the highest sales price to list price ratio, when you're less likely to have to reduce your price, and when you're most likely to have you're not going to withdraw the listing. So we know that that happens in the first few weeks, and this is just kind of a chart that says, hey, as time goes on, the number of sales drops way off. Meaning that after month 1, month 2, month 3, month 4, month 5, if I'm on the market that long, I don't have as many sales happening that period of time with my house being on the market that long. There's most of the homes that have been listed back when I listed have sold. Now there's just a few left that are still selling, and they're all having to reduce their price or do price reductions, and they're getting less than what they're originally getting. So these charts can kind of help somebody, and they're further into the presentation with each chart as well. This is another one that I think you can have the conversation, but the next slide, go to the next one. We're going to kind of keep going. There's another chart that might be a little bit easier for you to share than that one we just looked at. price reductions by quarter. I'm gonna go to the next slide. There you go. Price reductions by price point. This is where you need to make sure you have this one in your presentation, okay? By the way, there's a toolkit. Have anybody ever heard of the toolkit that we produced for you?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So in the toolkit, there's a lot of information, but there are 2 reports that I want you to make sure you know are available to you. One is a grab and go seller's presentation, and it's just our key slides for a seller listing presentation. And the other one is basically a grab and go for buyers, key charts and scripts for having a buyer conversation. So this 90-page one, you can go through it and pull out the ones you want, or you could just go to the toolkit and download just the key slides. So and if you're in a pinch, that's a great place to go, right? If I haven't done this yet, and I've been meaning to, but now I've got somebody I need to go talk to, I can just go grab the grab and go, and I know the slides that I need are gonna be there. So that's there. When you do that, we focus mostly on by price point, because these are the conversations you wanna have. So tell me, who wants to be the seller today? Who's selling their house? Come on, somebody wants to be a seller. And remind me your first name?
Rusty.
Rusty, thank you. Rusty, what price point are you in?
450.
Your house is at 450? All right, so right here, fair? Okay. So we know that in the third quarter of 2022, there were 31.5% of the closings had to have price reductions in order to sell. Last quarter, the third quarter of 2021, only 16.6% had to have price reductions. So we're seeing an increase in the buyers' pressure on pricing. In other words, we're having to come down a little bit more because we've priced it too high. We're seeing a lot of that happen more often than it was, certainly, and a pretty big increase year over year. Would you agree? Okay, so next slide. How much of the price reduction? A lot of people are thinking, okay, well, if I have to do price reduction, what's it gonna be? How much is it gonna be? So Rusty is in the 450 price range. Circle that. Last year, you would have gotten away with a 4.5% price reduction if you didn't price it right to begin with. This year, you're looking at about a 5.3%. That's what the median price reduction amount was for people that closed in the third quarter of 2022. We didn't price it right to begin with. Fair enough? Okay. Next slide. 450 price reduction effect. So we know that when you have a price reduction, you are no longer in the same position you were to negotiate without the price reduction. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You think it's fair?
I guess it is, but I don't like it.
Don't like it. Yeah, it's a course of time, right? So the more time that goes on with me having something available for sale, the less likely I am going to be able to negotiate a higher price, unless I'm you know, real specialty sort of product, which maybe we have, we'll talk about it. But at the end of the day, the market is telling us that if you don't price it right, you're likely to walk away with 93.3% of what you were originally asking. And if you price it right, you're likely to walk away with 100% of what you're asking. Okay? So we go to the next slide. We also know that having a price reduction affects the days it takes you to sell the home. In some cases, months. But we talk about days on market. If it's priced right at $450,000, you're likely to sell it in about a week, 8 days. That was what the median number was for the third quarter of 2022. If it's not priced right, it's going to take you 39 days, so about an extra month. Okay? About an extra month. Overall, similar. It's in a price point that's a pretty popular price point, so pretty similar. But I also see some outliers, especially down below, under 100,000. looks a little weird. Does anybody own a home that's worth under $100,000? You don't have to tell me, but you maybe know somebody, right? But the reality is there's not any homes under 100,000, very few.
That have a roof.
That have a roof. That would actually qualify for a mortgage, right? But there are a few. However, the ones that had price reductions were on the market like 173 days. But still, the ones that didn't, price it right, they sold it 9 days. So even though it didn't have a roof, it was priced right, it sold quick.
Those are the ones we should have bought in 2011.
Yeah. Well, honestly, those are the ones we should have bought yesterday.
Yeah, because they don't go up.
I mean,
There wasn't any, but there
we
was.
could, somebody found one. We just need to figure out where it is, right? It's out, there's one or two. But by price point, that's what we're looking at there. Next slide, so the effect on days of market. So what that means is we sort of leads us to the real story of the market. What's really happening? Giving you a lot of information so far today. We focused on the monthly stuff. We've kind of shifted to the quarterly, so hopefully you're with me there. But as we're talking about the quarterly numbers, we talk about the closed sales, total closed sales, 12,094 total closed sales in the 8-county area.
Year to date?
Atlanta. What's that?
Is that year to date?
That is in the third quarter. That's in the third quarter. In the third quarter, that represents 100% of all the closings. Those had a median sale to original list price of 99.7%. That's part of the 4F that I showed you earlier. Remember, those are the big numbers. The median days on market was 15. Now, Russ, I don't know if you talked to any other agents, but if you have, that's what they're going to share with you. Okay, that's what pretty much everybody has access to. You now have some information that really nobody else has. And if you have talked with anybody, if you're planning on, you're not going to hear this from anyone else. I know because we're the only ones that have access to this. Keller Williams has an exclusive agreement with Chartmaster to provide us some information that we think is vital for you to know, and the rest of the market doesn't seem to care. But we want you to understand what that means, and that's a second layer of price reduced homes versus not price reduced homes, because they perform differently in the marketplace. And they're different enough that I think it's important for you to understand what those differences are so that you can make a better decision about where to price your home. Okay, so price reduced homes represent 31.5% of all of the closed listings in the third quarter. That was 3,813 homes. Those price reduced homes got a median of 92.5% in 42 days. And we looked at your price point earlier. It was a little bit different numbers, but pretty close. Non-price reduced homes represent 68.5% of all the closed listings. They got 100% in 8 days. Okay? So what does that tell you? What does that tell you?
It's important to place it right.
What?
It's important to place it right.
Is that you as an agent, or are you feeling like that as a seller?
As a client.
As a client, it's probably pretty important to price it right. Guess what? When you go through this like this, you don't even have to start telling them. They start telling you, like, ooh, they just like, I've never heard this before. I can tell you didn't hear it. I know you. In fact, most of the time, I've never used that in a script. Most of the time, they're telling me that before I get to that point. Most of the time, I'm hearing, nobody's ever shared this with me before. How come nobody else has ever shared this with me before? Well, they just don't have access to it like we do. We pay extra to make sure that we have information to provide to you so you can make the best decision. It's just not every realtor has it. That's all. Right? You can say it however you want to say it. It's your script, but ultimately that's what it boils down to. But they will tell you, yeah, it's important to price it right. They start thinking about, I better price this right. I better price this right. Instead of thinking about, you better sell it for what I want. You better list it at the number I want. Because that's what we're thinking when we go on a listing presentation, is how am I going to beat this person over the head with a lower price? No, that's not really what we think, but that's kind of the sense that we're like, I'm gonna have to go in and, give these people a reality check. And they're probably gonna hate me. No, you're gonna walk through and they're gonna educate themselves and they're gonna thank you if you do it this way. Make sense? Right, Teresa?
Yeah, I'm thinking the days on market really, right now today, is hitting me the hardest on this chart, because when we go back up to that other chart that shows, the price on days on market.
Yeah.
It's a more stark picture to me. That, okay, well, if it takes 42 days on market, that other chart told me my sale price is gonna go down.
Yes, you can relate those two together, right? That's really good. Yeah, that's a good thought. And you can even point that out. Remember the chart I just showed you that says that time goes on, you got a much less likelihood chance of selling, and you got a much higher likelihood of having a price reduction and selling at a lower list price. So we know that. Now, if we just stopped there, that's enough for me to make a really good decision. But guess what? I'm going to give you a little bit more. There's another layer. These are the people who actually didn't sell. They tried to, but they didn't. They failed. Okay, failed listings. But guess what? Some of the failed listings were relisted and sold. So they tried it, it didn't sell. Then they pulled it off the market. They waited however long they waited. They put it back on the market and it sold. Okay? Now, that category of people fall on the lower level to a certain extent. On the right-hand side, by the way, this is called the game board. You guys know that? Mm-hmm. Why do we call it the game board? Because if you had your little piece, Liz, what do you want to do?
The winner is green.
The winner, you get to put your little piece, whatever that looks like. You have the car, you have the airplane, you have the house, you have the phone thing, you have a hat, right? The Monopoly game. You get to put it on the green box. That's the goal. My job as a realtor is to guide people from there to here, because I know that this is where you win the game when it comes to selling real estate. That means my home was not previously on the market. I didn't have it listed before, and I fall into the category that's 64.3% of all the closings were not previously listed and not price reduced. They got 100% in 8 days, which is basically the same as here, because there's very few right now that are coming back on the market that were listed before, because everybody that listed their house back in the last couple of years sold. In other words, everybody got a golden ticket, everybody could sing. There wasn't hardly anybody showing up. The line had 10 people in it, but everybody got a golden ticket and got to go through, regardless of whether their house smelled like cats, whether they cleaned their rooms, whether they vacuumed the floors, whether they did any painting at all. They didn't have to do anything, did they? They could show up as ugly as they wanted to, and it would sell over list price. The second day it was on the market, right? Everybody got a golden ticket. That's not the case anymore. We know that. We're getting back to a little bit more of a reality market. So previously listed, meaning it was on the market before, but I took it off the market. I probably did something to it, but I didn't change the price. I put it back on at the same price. That represents 4.2% of the market. They got 100% of what they were asking, because it wasn't a price issue. It just took 96 days longer because they didn't maybe have it in the right condition, or something caused them to pull it off the market.
Was that cumulative? So is that days in the market for both listings combined?
It is. That is a really good question, Russ. That combined. So we do, and that's a very important distinction about this data, is that we use previously listed periods in our numbers. So the days, the medians, the original list price is all factored into all of our data. Then you have homes that were not previously listed, but had a price reduction. There used to be a little key on here. This said right agent, right price. This said wrong agent, right price. This said right agent, wrong price. And this said wrong agent, wrong price, right? Previously listed, and I had to do a price reduction. I totally messed up at the beginning. That represents only 9.1% of the market. They got 89.9% in 94 days. Okay, so we know red boxes, nobody wants to end up there. It takes way longer to sell. I'm not getting anywhere where I thought close to where I was going to get. I'm now at 12% less, or roughly 11% less, versus I'd much rather be quick off the market and get 100% of what I'm asking for. Okay. So next slide is a opportunity for you to tailor this to the specific area. This is the interactive chart. Now it's in presentation mode, So you can't do it, but if you take it out of presentation mode, go back to that slide and then just hit escape, I think. Yeah. All right, now, double click anywhere inside of here and the PowerPoint or the Excel spreadsheet will pop up, okay? Now, here's the thing you have to understand. You have to be in PowerPoint to do this. You can't be in PDF. It can't be a PDF, it has to be a PowerPoint. And therefore, if you're running a Mac and you don't have PowerPoint or Excel on your Mac, it will not work. So you have to download the Office 365, at least the PowerPoint and the Excel, in order for the interactive charts to work. You have to have those because it's an embedded spreadsheet that goes into the PowerPoint presentation. You can click on it, you can select the area, East Cobb, we're doing all prices. Actually, what are we at, $450 for us? There you go. So now I can go out and have this conversation with him, and then I just click outside of the box, and boom, there is just his most, what's important to him. It's the area he's in and the price point he's in, and here are the layers for those numbers and his price point. So it's interactive to be able to do that. Good? I know it's a little trickier when you're out there on your own and you're trying to make it happen and make it work, but it's really that simple. Just make sure you have PowerPoint, make sure you have Excel, and you're using the PowerPoint version. All right, and then click one more time outside of the box, and then everything goes away and you're back to the normal chart. All right, so we'll go back to presentation mode and go to the next slide. Failed listings. There are some failed listings that failed in the month of September or in the third quarter that did not sell. So that's what we're talking about here. Those numbers went up. 27% is what we're currently sitting at for the end of the third quarter. The number of homes that failed or were withdrawn or expired, what we looked at in the third quarter. Next slide. Total failed listings by price point. So we can again kind of circle right where he was. 23.3% of all of the listings failed. They didn't even sell. They went on the market, but then they were pulled off the market. Next slide. Same thing. This is just resale listings versus new construction included. The numbers don't change that much, so I wouldn't even worry about this. At some point, if there's a lot of new construction and these are big differences, we'll make this a little bit more of a focal point, because most of the conversations you're going to be having are with somebody who's selling a resale home, not a new construction builder. Not always, but it's there. So then the next slide. This is really what it all boils down to. This kind of leads us to it. So what really happened, putting it all together, we know we had closed sales, we had price reduced sales, we had sales that didn't happen, somebody who thought they were going to sell and then failed. Failed listings represent 27%, meaning that out of 100, 27 of them didn't sell in the third quarter. They were pulled off the market. 73 sold, and of the 73 that sold, we know that 32% of those had a price reduction. So if I can sort of assume that the ones that didn't sell might have been because they were overpriced, and I know that the ones that did sell with a price reduction were overpriced, and I add those two together, 27 plus 23 means 50 out of 100 are overpriced. So what does that look like? It looks like when you're driving around, as we do, and we see a for sale sign here and there and here and there. 5 out of every 10 for sale signs in the yard right now, based on third quarter numbers, are overpriced. Half of every single for sale sign that you're looking at is in front of a house that is overpriced. So let me ask you a question. Do you want to compete with those people, the red box, or do you want to compete with the green box? Because you got to compete with, you're going to compete with all of them. But if you want to win, you got to compete with the winners. Would you agree? Okay, so guess what I've done? I brought some green box houses for you to look at. And if you want to just kind of look through them and tell me, this being your house, where would you position it? Because you said earlier, it's important to price. Where would you position it? Above, below? Just
But
take a
those
look
are
at the pictures.
pendings, right, Jeremy? You're showing him pendings.
I'm showing them active listings.
Oh, active? Okay.
Competition.
See, I've gone through,
Oh, okay, got it.
pendings are in the rearview mirror, sales are in the rearview mirror. I'm not even gonna worry about the comps at this point. I know if I can get him to price it with the green box homes that are out there right now, we're gonna win. Because I already know what the green box houses are. I know my market. I know what they should be priced at based on the condition. I can tell the picture. You guys know this.
Yeah.
You can look through the FMLS and look at the pictures and tell whether it's a green box or not. You really do. You have that information. And if you don't, get out and caravan more. Get out and preview more. Get out and know the market more. Okay? That's key. But he's gonna do that. He literally wants to do it. He really wants to do it at this point, to pick out where he's gonna fit, because he wants to win. He wants it to happen. Because his wife, I don't know, she has to have that new house, right? He's just trying to figure out how to make it happen in the budget. Okay, so that's kind of my script there. And really at that point, I just kind of move into sign here, press hard, 4 copies. Never said that in my entire life. But that's the general, right, thinking is, at this point, he's ready to list his house. Now, I stole your flyer, so I'm gonna give you your flyer back. All right, so the next slide means that 50% were priced correctly. We kind of know that 50-50. So the next slide, you can do this by area. So again, we could have pinpointed East Cobb and the price point, and I have that exact information for him to look at. Next slide. If we were still in disagreement, in other words, I didn't quite go through that as well, or he was on his phone the whole time. He's like, what? I kind of know what you're saying. And you're like, oh, this isn't what I'm saying. I got somebody who's not paying any attention to me. He's not interested in actually selling his house. This is terrible. But he says, well, I want to try 295. We clutched on the numbers. We could change them, but. And I said, I really think it should be closer to 275. I think 275 is a better price point for us to hit. And, if you're wrong, worst case scenario is you're going to end up getting 87.2%, which means you're going to walk away with 257 in 111 days. If I'm right at 275, you're going to get 101.1%, which means you're going to walk away with 278,000 in 8 days. So even though the price difference is $20,000 lower with the price I'm recommending, your likely net sales price is $20,785 more. And you're going to do it in 103 fewer days, which is 3.4 less months of being on the market. And I don't know about you, but it costs me to own my home every month. Those carrying costs, I just sort of estimated there, that's another $7,200 over 3.4 months, which means the total benefit, if you're wrong, the total loss to you could be $27,995. So I don't know if that's a risk you're willing to take, go right ahead. I'm not here to tell you what you should price your house at. I'm here to help you make the best decision for you. And you know what the right decision is. You just need to sort of come to that conclusion and tell me what you want it to be. It's one way to use this. This is something that you need to sort of have a little bit of confidence going in to have this conversation. Would you agree? So, it's not for everybody. If you get there and they're not already on board with pricing it where it should, know that this is there to help you gently hit them over the head and help them kind of get it. Just get them over that, okay, yeah, now I see it all together now, and I actually see what it actually means, worst case scenario versus best case scenario, and what the difference is.
So for the 87.2% or the 101% that it's gonna sell for, what chart did you get that from? So you could quickly go back to plug in if you're selling a $700,000 house or something.
So that is going to come from the game board chart, and it's going to tell you the interactive game board chart by price point. What the median days on the market was and the sell price for not price reduced homes. So this comes from the red box category, if you will. This comes from the green box category. And when you enter in the specific price point, it comes from the interactive green box category. Because again, you put these numbers in the yellow. You put in what the price is, and it automatically goes to that particular price block. Yes.
How do you feel about the hard price points now.
Still, I would never move away from that. I don't care what kind of market it is.
Okay.
But I think the hard price points are key. We're still in a big enough seller's market. You could probably price it at $1 and it's gonna go up.
Yeah.
And the reason I know that is because I see it in MLS.
I think
People
there's so
actually price
few
them at $1.
buyers out there right now, like if you were,
There's
you have
not,
the choice of,
there's not
if you
so
were,
few buyers.
you don't think so?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I could tell by the numbers, they're still showing up and
Yeah.
they're still taking loan applications and they're getting more calls, he said. Their buyers are out there and what happened is, again, we don't have an inventory issue, we have an affordability issue. And the affordability issue is kind of a sticker shock right now, 7.5%. People are used to like 2.5%. But guess what? 7.5%, 6.5 to 7.5. I'll tell you. In 2001, we had a little mini crash. In 2001, interest rates were 7.4 and 6.8%. In 2007 to 2009, interest rates started at 6% and went down to 4.9. So,
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
yes, in 2001, we had a small dip. You know, you might remember this technology crash. The planes crashed into. I mean, there was a few things that happened that caused the real estate market to take a pause for a minute, and everything took a little bit of a pause. We had a little bit of a recession. It didn't last long, but it started. The interest rates were 7.4%. At the end of that time period, they were 6.8%. In 2007, prior to the crash in 2008, interest rates were 7.9. When we came out of, or 6.0, excuse me, 6.0, when we came out of that, they were 4.9.
And how long does that take to come out?
That took until almost 2011.
4 years?
Yeah, well, that number, that's how long it took, but those rates were 2009. Really, it was January 2009 when we hit the peak.
And that was sort of 7.9 to
6.0 to 4.9. And right now they're at 7.5 to 7.6.
But in that case, they were trying to accelerate the market.
They were trying to, that's why the market, that's why the interest rates were going down.
They reduced interest rates to accelerate the market.
Right.
Yes.
Now they're increasing interest rates
To
to
decelerate, yeah. So those were prescribed to a certain extent. Actually, the one in 2008 was just as a result of, hey, the market's making some shifts, we need to, put some more money into it, and they reduced rates.
So looking at those historical numbers, that tells me that we might be in this 7% for a while.
I would expect that. Yeah, I would expect, I mean, for anybody that's been around a while in this business, I would hope we stay at 6 to 7% for a long, long, long time. Because that is a very healthy rate all the way across the board. From an economic perspective, our industry, our global economy does a little bit better when the rates are a little higher, and it costs you a little bit of money to borrow money because they're making money. It just works.
Well, when rates started dropping below 6%, you'd be like, wow, a 5.5% interest rate, that's great. And then 4.5%, oh, I mean, we got a mortgage at 2.75% in 2020.
Yeah.
Free money.
It was like free money, and it was to spur the market and get us out of the 2008 problems in 2009, 2010, 2011, and really get buyers back into the market. You got to remember, buyers went away, and the mortgage industry changed when that happened. The mortgage industry went from, you could pretty much do a stated income. I didn't have to prove really anything, and I could get a mortgage.
Scary.
I didn't have to have hardly any documentation. I could get a mortgage. And that's not the case anymore. I mean, there's the standards for getting a mortgage have changed dramatically. So that also meant they had to really reduce the rates to get people back in there to sell homes. I'm going to keep going a little bit. Next chart is the same one. Yep, only interactive. Then we have a sales price 100% or more by price point. Those are there. Again, it's just information for you to know so that you can tell people, hey, the realistic chance of you selling for more than list price we know is going to happen if you price it right. And if you do, in your price point, here's the opportunity you have to do that. Next slide is just by price point. So in Russ's case, 51.1% of all closings sold at least the sales price or higher. Next slide. Days on market for those homes went to 7 days versus 14. If it sold for less than 100%, it was 14 days. If it sold at or above 100% of list price, it was 7 days. And again, that's his specific price point. The next slide. First 21 days. So remember earlier I showed you there was those 3 charts that tell you that over time you start to get less or you have to negotiate more, so on and so forth. This kind of overlays it, and it does it in a shorter period of time, 21 days. Median days on the market right now, I think was 14 or 15. So that's what the number showed us. It sort of depends on the price point. So 21 days is a little extended of that, but here's what we know. There are still some homes that are selling, holes, well, it could be a hole in the ground, but some homes that are selling for, they're selling before they get listed. That's how you get to 0. 0 days on the market means I already had a buyer, I put it in the MLS, and then I changed the status like a couple hours later, more than likely. It does also mean that you could have put your house on the market in the morning and a buyer came through, put it under contract, wrote the contract, and you put it in MLS like right away. Does that happen that often? Kinda. Same day? Usually it's like a day. You might do one. It's the 0 days. It usually means I already had a buyer. I already had it under contract before I even put it in the market. So that's 0. So that's why we said 21 days and a little more, because we're counting 0. When you get to day 3, 4, and 5, the gray line here indicates the number of sales that happen on that day. Meaning, on 3rd day on the market, that's where 668 of the sales occurred, was the 3rd day on the market. 759 of all the sales that occurred on day 4. Then it started to drop down, because we know as time goes on, the number of sales drops. Well, what also happens the sales to list price ratio, original list price ratio, starts at 100%, it goes up to 101.9, 101.9, 101.9, day 2 or day 3, 4, and 5, and then it starts to go down a little bit. And really what this chart tells us is that after about 13 days, which guess what, was pretty close to the median, after that time frame, this sale to list price ratio becomes much more variable. Okay, so from a timing perspective, I know that earlier I said if you're going to do a price reduction, I think in his price point it was 5.3% is the price reduction you have to make, but when do you do it? Well, I don't know for sure, but I can tell you at this point, it's probably too late. Would that be fair?
Probably by day 7.
Probably by about this day, I will know if I'm priced right or not. So here's a general rule of thumb. You may already know this. If you have no showings, you're 10% overpriced. So if I get to day 7, and I don't even have one showing yet, I'm probably close to 10% overpriced. If I get to day 7 and I have a good number of showings, but I don't have an offer, I'm probably 5% overpriced. Okay? General rule of thumb. Based on the numbers, that's what it tells us. So that you can guide there. All right, next slide. Summary. What does that mean? Basically, you're kind of the end of the meat of the presentation. This summary is designed for you to have some talking points, to have the numbers that we just went over, and to kind of know what they are. If you wanted to memorize anything about the quarterly numbers, this is where you would come. Total sales, we know year to date decreased by 16.3%. We didn't talk about distressed sales because there's nothing to talk about. There's almost none of them. Quarterly sales were down 27.3. Median sales price was up higher by 14.3% in the quarter. The median sale to list dropped by 0.8% to 99.7. Days on market was higher. All of the numbers are here that we just went over. Good talking points for you to have, elevator conversations or whatever it is. Having a party. Guess what? I saw, this is I think the first one I've seen, y'all have a holiday party coming up in December. Doesn't that seem like a long way away? It's really not. It's going to be here before you know it, holiday season. And what happens? holiday season. Everybody's talking about the market and what's going on, and these are your scripts. This is your opportunity to share some stuff that nobody else has. How's the market doing? Well, it kind of depends. Depends a little bit on where you are, the price point, but you know, it's just like any time. There's a lot of people who set their prices too high and they're really struggling right now. The people that understand where the market is and they're pricing according to the market are really winning at a high level. If you're interested in knowing how it's going in your area, let me know. I'll come over and talk to you. Talk some specifics.
What about buyers? How would you talk to buyers right now?
So with a buyer, it's an affordability issue. It's really sitting down and talking about what you can afford and where that is, and understanding, you know, what the interest rates mean, equate to how much you can buy, how much you're going to put down, and then looking at the numbers. And you can look at historically. So the buyer charts are going to show you that over time, prices go up. That the price drop you're hearing about right now is seasonal. But if you're getting ready to buy, if it's in my budget, then buy. That's the conversation that I would have.
What if you don't have, I'm curious if we're at a point where their rent and their mortgage are at the same amount, so they may not be as motivated, and they may say, you know what, I may just wait with the interest rates being this high.
Yeah.
Because
It's a whole different class, but the reality is, you know, rent is doing nothing for you. It's all going away. At least with a mortgage, I'm building some equity, and I have that. In addition, with a mortgage, my rate's going to stay, or my monthly payment, depending on the mortgage you get, is not going to change. How often has your rent gone up?
Every year.
Every year? So your rent's going to go up every year, but your mortgage payment's going to stay the same. So over time, it makes way more sense to buy. Now, if you're saying, hey, I want to buy a house, but I'm only going to live there for 6 months, and then I'm going to move, and then I'm going to move, and then I'm going to move, don't rent. I mean, if you got a lot of money, buy and then rent it to somebody else. That's the smart thing to do. But no, that's not what most renters are thinking about, buying multiple houses and becoming a landlord.
You mentioned that at the beginning, you asked everybody, you know, you're reading that it's house prices are going down 20%, you know, and then you're also saying the market's still at 100 miles per hour.
Yes, it's
so
still
to
a buyer's
me,
market, or
if I
seller's
was a
market.
buyer, or I am possibly a buyer myself, to me that says, okay, well, there's still room for price to go down while interest rate is still going to be the same or maybe slightly.
So I would go with the buyer, and you'll find in the buyer packet, in the charts, that we focus a lot more on the red box homes, and I would understand that going back to that 21-day chart, you know, you're probably not going to get a deal in 3, 4, 5 days on the market. If you want to negotiate, you're going to have to wait till it gets to day 21. So you got to be patient as a buyer. You also got to understand that if I'm going to look at a green box home, I got to be willing to pay green box prices, because the market is still such that the seller is going to win in the green box category. You have to be willing to be patient and hunt for the red box homes. The good number is, or the good thing is, that there's more of those now than there used to be. So there's way more opportunities for buyers to get a good deal on a home with somebody who priced it too high to begin with. They got a fine home, but the market just left them behind. Now they're trying to catch up, and that's your opportunity as a buyer to get a good deal. So my job is to help you find the red box houses.
Why don't I wait till we're 80 miles per hour or 60 miles per hour? Or will we get there? That's another question, right? Will the market even?
I think it will, but that doesn't mean that prices are going to go lower. See, prices are still going up year over year, and it's a seasonal adjustment. So if you are a tenant and you want to time the absolute best time to buy a house, buy it in January. Close in January. That's when the houses are the least expensive. Mostly because that's when the more expensive homes aren't on the market, so it changes the median. It's not that homes are cheaper, it's just that what is selling is cheaper. But if that's the perspective, I'm gonna have a hard time saying, you know, they can close in December, January. Well, my lease is up in July. Well, then you're gonna have to buy in July.
My favorite slide for that buyer is the one that shows active listings from 2008 to now.
Yes.
And so where in this chart do you see what you're thinking might happen, gonna happen?
I feel like we missed a chart. Earlier, and I didn't go over. Let's go back. There was one. Keep going back towards the front.
Can
Can I say something
Yes.
about median price?
Yes.
I think people don't understand what median price is. If I could afford a house at $500,000 when the interest rates were 4.5%, and it's an affordability issue now.
Yes.
And now the interest rates are 6.8. I can't afford that $500,000 house. I have to look at 400 or 425. That's what brings the median sale price down. Not that that $500,000 house is only worth 425 now, but the pool of buyers is different.
It is.
So but people are, someone is gonna buy at 425 instead of 500. It's not that the house dropped in price, it's that the buyer can't afford that 500.
Well, and I have to ask a buyer too, somebody who's thinking about buying, well, prices are going down. Actually, they're not, and if you just show them the right charts, the prices are still going up year over year. Now, at some point, they may go down, I don't know. However, it's hard to time the market. It's hard to know that this is the absolute bottom. Earlier when I said, how many people bought a house in 2011? 5 people in the entire room raised their hand. That was the absolute bottom, but we didn't. If we all knew that, we would have all bought houses. Tried to, at least. It didn't happen. So it's really hard to time it. So you got to ask yourself, do I want to invest in something that is likely to go up over the next 5 years or not? And real estate over a 5-year period almost always goes up. Not always, but almost always goes up. So look at it in terms of, if it's a short-term thing, it's much more risky, just like getting into any market. If I'm going to buy some stock and I'm going to sell it in 3 days, I got to know what I'm buying. If I'm going to buy some stock and I'm going to hold on to it for 30 years, I don't really care what happens in 3 days.
So what people are saying about prices going down 20%, it's just fake news.
It's not that it's fake news, but it's not relative to annual decrease. They are not, nothing has dropped by 20% year over year, not even close.
It's the median price, not the price of this house is going down 20%.
And even medians
It's
have
that
dropped
the-
by 20%.
It's that, the
So
price
this is
people are buying
this
at is
is
dropped, not that particular house
this,
is dropped.
yeah, this is another chart. I didn't go to this, right?
Yeah.
I must have just slipped past it really fast.
You
This is
got
really
excited about
really important. Yeah, I probably did. Thank you.
Is there a way to make it
So-
bigger on the screen?
What?
Is there a way to make it bigger?
There is no way to make it bigger on the screen. You make it smaller.
Oh, there you go.
Kinda, I don't know, is that better? Okay. So we had the peak of the buyer's market in January 2009. Okay, that's when we had, remember the American Idol chart? We had all those homes for sale and very few that were selling. We had the highest months of inventory. That was the peak of the buyer's market in 2009. So in January 2009, there were 31,121 homes available to be purchased. By the way, in 2009, Atlanta was smaller. Would you agree? We've grown since then. Like 13 years of growth, and is there more people moving to Atlanta now?
We could use those houses
right?
now.
So just in that alone, there should be way more homes for sale than there were then, if we were in the same market, but we're not. 31,121 homes were for sale. There were 16 months of inventory. Foreclosures and short sales represented 41% of the entire market. 41% of everything that closed was a short sale or a foreclosure. There were only 1,898 of them that sold.
On top of that, most of that 31,000 homes is that they were really crappy homes, a lot of them.
Well, some of them
And
have
people
been
that had good
vacant for
homes,
years.
so-
They didn't have any power. They didn't have any electricity. I mean, yeah, they've been neglected. Not all of them, but I mean, a lot of it were the tough sales. They were tough sales. The median sales price at that time was 143,000. The median days on the market was 145 days on the market. Median sales original list price was 80% of what somebody was asking. They're taking 20% off the price just to get it sold. Price reductions represented 75% of everything that sold had a price reduction before it got a contract. And the number of failed listings was almost 75% of everything that got listed would be withdrawn or expire before it would ever sell. That's what a buyer's market looks like. So if you hear anybody telling you, oh, we're in a buyer's market again, oh, I almost said 2 bad words, BS. They don't know what they're talking about. This is a buyer's market, folks. Now, as a tenant, We're not here. If you wanna wait till here, wait till here. You might be waiting forever, and it might cost you a lot of money in rent. And if you probably look back and you waited 10 years and you go, wow, if I would've bought something 10 years ago, I'd have about $300,000 in equity in my pocket right now. But again, that's a buyer's market. A normal market, kinda. 2019, remember I said it's sorta, kinda normal? But it's the closest to where we are today that we know sorta normal. 2020 not, 2021 not. So let's look at 2019. In September of 2019, there were 14,263 homes for sale. Did you know that? Did you realize how much more there were then than there are today at 9,090 in September of 2022? There were 5,000 more homes for sale in the same time in 2019 as there is today. So guess what? We still have an inventory problem, don't we? We're still short, aren't we? 2.3 months of inventory compared to 2.9, 0.5% distressed sales versus buyer's market of 41%. We're even lower than we were in 2019, fewer distressed sales. Why? More people have more equity. There's no need to foreclose or short sale. You have plenty of equity. Sell it if you need to sell it. Total sold homes. Here's where, again, it's by prescription. Fewer homes are selling, 3,494 versus 4,628. So we have a less active market, we know that. Prices, 430,000 versus 143 or versus 285. So much higher selling prices, which sort of equates to some little bit, mortgages. It's an affordability issue at some point, right? Median days on the market is less even than 2019 by 13 days, 2 weeks almost. Sale to list price ratio is a little higher now than it was in 2019. 97.6 versus 96.8. Price reductions are lower, there's fewer of them, 40.3% in the third quarter of 2022 versus 44.3% of all of the closed sales had a price reduction in September 2019. And the number of failed listings, there are fewer listings expiring and being withdrawn, even in September, or even in the third quarter of 2022, compared to the third quarter of September 2020 or 2019. So this is another really good chart to gain some perspective. I don't know how I missed it earlier, so I apologize. It kind of falls in line with when we're talking about sales and the number of sales and how they dropped by 27%. That let's take a look at that and get a better perspective on what that really looks like. Here's a true buyer's market. Here's an average seller's market, kind of a most recent normal market. And here's where we are today. So it gives you some perspective. Okay, so we're 5 minutes before noon. I want to make sure that everybody's had a chance to ask any questions. And if you have some, please let me know. Yes.
Stupid question, but so we are allowed to email this presentation or these charts, I'm sorry, to, like say my seller right now that.
Yes. I would
Go over it with them.
I would never send that entire report. It's 90 pages long. I would never send that. I would pull out some slides and or shorten that, and you can, when you download, you got to download the PDF or download the PowerPoint, and then just get it to where you want it, and then send those slides. They typically all work independently of one another. In other words, you could look at a chart and it kind of describes and tells you what it wants to tell you without having to relate to another one. But there is a sequence, and that's why we put together that toolkit where the grab and go for the buyer and the grab and go for the seller. That might be where you want to start, is go pull down the grab and go and maybe say, okay, that's what I'm going to email to my client. But at the same time, I also think it's a much better opportunity to sit down with them and go through it versus just sending it to them. You can send 1 or 2 slides out as just sort of a teaser, if you will, marketing piece, like a postcard, or send it in an email newsletter or something along those lines. But you're welcome to do this. I would never send it out in its entirety. And remember, these are for you. These are exclusive to Keller Williams. Share it with anybody you want to who's thinking about joining Keller Williams, right? This is sort of your competitive advantage, or one of them. So use it as such. Other questions? Great question. Thoughts, questions? Did you get anything out of today?
Yes.
For those of you remaining, thank you so much for sticking this out and hearing everything I had to say, regardless of whether you wanted to or not, right? Really appreciate you being here. Thank you. Don't forget, my email's there. If you have questions, suggestions, thoughts, something you would like to see, something that you're not sure about is right, you want to test me on it, please do, because we're not, again, some things are constantly changing, and I'm open to making sure that this is what you need it to be, okay? I think that's everything, really. Well, let me go one more deep. I'm sorry, go. I changed one other thing I want you to know. We're gonna fast forward a whole bunch of slides. Keep scrolling down, it's underneath there, that one right there, 35. So slide number 35 in the big presentation has hyperlinks in it, and those hyperlinks take you to the other 64 pages that I didn't cover today, or whatever it is. There's a lot of them. So, and they're spelled out. So closing costs, you want to know about closing costs. You want to know about supply versus the basic metrics. That's really, really key. Studying supply. This is a good place to go to understand how supply affects the rest of the market. So we're really, really watching supply. We're watching prices, pricing it right by the numbers, daily market. It's all here. And all you got to do, if you're in PowerPoint, you just kind of click, you hold down and click, and it takes you to the page. If you're, and I don't know if it'll do it from that, it should. Is this downloaded, or is this from the, I think it's downloaded, isn't it?
On the desktop.
Yeah, you have to download it. Click outside the box because you're inside that. There you go. Now try the link. Just click one time and hold down on the shift key. I think that's how it works. The control key. There it goes. Then that takes you to the slide. So zoom out, or zoom in, because you're zoomed in so much, zoom out a little bit. All right, a little bit further. So at the bottom, you'll see back to index. That's a new thing. If you've ever used that before, it would take you to the page, but then it would take forever to try to get back. So I just added this little back to index and everything that comes after that index, so that you can quickly look at that chart and then hit back to index, go back and check out another one. So you can bounce around and go through these a lot faster than you used to if you're interested enough to dive deep into these. Okay?
Can I add something?
Yes, please, Joanne.
Well, one of the things that through time that everyone struggles with is, with your competitive edge, is showing how much you receive for information and reports, right? And without overwhelming the seller. And how do you demonstrate that? Because to say it verbally, you know, somebody could just sit and think, well, you get 5 more pages or something, you know, and you don't. So how you display that in some fashion, whether digitally or in print. Some people used to print, and maybe they still do, print everything and just put it on the desk and never open it, you know what I mean? And then take your sheets that you want, that you were gonna have. That last thing you did would be a great way to show it digitally.
Yeah, because you can
How
quickly
many
go to
different
that.
things that you've got for reports. Yeah.
And just for you to know too, again, we talked earlier about knowledge is confidence, ignorance is fear. So this is your opportunity to gain more knowledge. Dive into these. You can do it quicker now, especially in PDF, because you just click, and you're in PDF. You can get through this really, really, really fast. So it's a great way to see the rest of the charts. And there's some really good stuff further down, the trends over time, and seeing that and visually being able to go to page 51. So monthly median sales price. We know that over a period of time, it just goes up. That's the way it's done. So it's really very small, but it did go down. But it went down during the biggest recession we've ever had, in our lifetime anyway. I guess there were others, but you know what I'm saying? Most of the time, over time, it goes up. The other thing that's important here, I'll just kind of point out, see this red line? That's the trend line. So right now, we're still above the long-term trend line. Long-term meaning from 2009 to today, our median prices are above the long-term trend line. Meaning that there's still some adjustment that's probably going to happen to get us on par to where we should be. So that's a great chart. There's other ones in there that are just like that for sell to list price ratio, median days on market, that track it over a long period of time. Sometimes this is good to show buyers. Again, if you're gonna be in the market for a while, your investment is going to pay off down the road. One, your rent's not gonna go up, and two, your prices will, which means you're gonna gain equity, and down the road, instead of buying a $300,000 house, in 10 years, you're hopefully gonna be buying a $650,000 house. Or more, You're gonna build equity and you're gonna make more money.
Just a nerd question, the historic trend line, you know what that percent is?
I don't, not right off the top of my head for that one.
4% maybe?
I don't know, Chuck, do you have that in your head?
I never did.
Yeah, well, it's not something we've really tracked, but I'll look at it. I think it's good. I'm gonna write it down, because historically, it's a good number to know. And it's gonna change based on when we choose it, like from this date to this date. Yeah, earlier I chose from June to September, but we can look at that. I'm gonna thank you. Any other questions? I think I hit it all. I could keep going, but I know you guys need to. I know you need to go do something else.
I really wanna figure out how to do interactive.
Okay,
And I can't.
I'm gonna meet with you afterwards, okay? Yep. Any other questions? Thank you for being here.
Chuck Carr, how well did your student do? Chuck Carr, how well did your student do? Thumbs up, Jeremy, yay. That's exactly right, guys. Thank you all
It's
so
tough
much.
when I'm presenting to the guy who created